Secure your tinfoil hats, buckle down tight, and hold on loosely as we soar over the rocky tops of the La Platas on a Rocky Mountain high, get sucked into the vortex of the Four Corners, and settle down snugly at mile marker 420 in colorful Colorado. It is Saturday, December 28th, Sunday, December 29th for those of you across the pond. Welcome to We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. I am so glad you guys could join us this evening, and I am your host, TessaTNT, hoping you had an awesome week and a rockin' weekend so far. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on one of our many outlets. You may also find us on Spreaker, Periscope, Twitter, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iTunes, iHeartRadio, CastBox, Tumblr, YouTube, SoundCloud, TuneIn Radio, Deezer, as well as Podcast Addict. So tonight I have a treat for all my guys and gals out there. Tonight we will be performing the magic of the Paradox Paranormal Forum. So tonight on the forum we have Mr. Robert White, Mr. SleepyDave Davenport, our weekday host, and Miss Mia Savage. Welcome, you guys, and thanks so much for hanging out with me on the show tonight.
Hello, and thank you.
Thank you.
Our pleasure.
So, on the forum, we discuss different things under the umbrella of the paranormal. Last month, we talked a lot about astral travel and certain things like that. Is there anything specific you guys would like to touch on as far as the paranormal goes in the last portion of this holiday season?
Yeah,
I was thinking...
Yeah. Well, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I just noticed.
I was thinking like fake... Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
No, this so-called tradition of telling ghost stories at Christmas time. I'm sorry, I never grew up with that, and sometimes I think, like, I don't know where these trends start. It's like, okay, I don't know that as a Christmas tradition. Trying to mix Halloween and Christmas. That's just my opinion.
Well, I think it started back, in the day before people had television and so on and so forth, and they'd sit around and entertain each other by telling ghost stories.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
or
but at Christmas, though,
Burton.
That's the thing.
Right? It seems like
blame
really...
Tim Burton. Nightmare Before Christmas.
Right? Well, it did happen a lot.
Well, where else would the Christmas spirit come from?
Right? I think one of the original shows, not original as far as when this whole tradition started, but ones that we know of in our time and a little prior to us is The Christmas Story with Ebenezer Scrooge, where he was visited by Christmas present, Christmas past, and Christmas future.
Yes. I liked the Muppets version.
I haven't seen that one, I don't think. I'll have to check it out.
Yes, that's the best.
And I think a lot of us have traditions that are somewhat different than a lot of other people's. Do you guys have any traditions over in Australia that might be different from what we do over here in America, Robert?
Not overly. I think Australia is still catching up with most of the things from America because we keep importing things. It wasn't that long back that Halloween wasn't really done down here, but now it's becoming a thing. So everything in Christmas-wise, we have all the snow songs, which we never get down in the summertime. I think that we are finally starting to make up our own Christmas songs based loosely on the tunes from over there. But for the most part, I think we're just importing the things from America. And hello to everyone in the chat rooms.
Hello, listeners. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think it was Sleepy that was talking about, Christmas and the date that we have it, how it's not really related to the date of Christmas, which I believe Christ was actually born in March, which is closer to Easter, but that kind of lines up with the, rising again of Christ, the second coming, basically, or when he was resurrected. But also being born in March, which is interesting as well, how that lines up. I know a lot of people in my life...
Astrologically.
Yeah. Go ahead.
That would be on the cusp of the very last sign I've studied a lot about this. There's another theory astrologically that on the day he was born, that the disciples were actually astrologers, and that every single planet was in its home sign, at the time of his birth, but that would have made it more like August, right? So the other one about the March, that would be at the very end of the zodiac, being the last sign of Pisces, and going into the very first sign, which would have been Aries. So he might have been born between the ending and the beginning of the zodiac as well.
Very interesting. And it's been hard, like as a kid and stuff, I didn't understand why my dad was so bah humbug. But then later on he explained because they've commercialized Christmas so much, and it doesn't even really mean to a lot of people what it used to mean. So, I don't know. And it seems like every year, because one of our traditions is we'll take off on either Christmas Eve or Christmas night. Generally, it's Christmas Eve, and we'll go around and listen to Christmas music and check out all the Christmas lights everywhere. And it seems like every year there's less and less Christmas lights. Is it because the Christmas spirit is dying, or is it because people just can't afford the electric bill?
Probably a combination. I think at the beginning, the commercialization was a good thing, and then they started getting more and more greedy. You see the Christmas commercials coming on in September now, and it's astonishing. I remember seeing a couple of Christmas commercials literally this year, and it was before Halloween. And then people get overwhelmed and they get stressed out. It's become more of a stressor when it used to be the advertisements were good. You had something to look forward to. You have candy canes in the store. You have this, you have that. And it just got too much. It got too commercialized and too much about consumerism,
Yeah, and then right after Thanksgiving, the night of Thanksgiving, it's Black Friday. They've started it early now. It used to be the day after. Now they've started early, and you can still get in on it and stay home and do it on your computer. But as far as going out there and all the craziness, especially how people just seem to get crazier and crazier and there's shootings all over the place, I'd rather stay home and use my mouse or my cell phone, order my Christmas stuff. That's how I did it last year when I actually had a job going on at the time, and Christmas was fat that year. But I ordered everything online through Amazon and did the whole Prime thing and got free shipping, and everything showed up, and I didn't have any issues whatsoever. And you don't have to deal with standing in line and going around people and all the crazy energy that's out there when you do go shopping, because people are so stressed out. It's not fun anymore.
It helped a little bit better, just to not have to go to the store at midnight. I think it's all kind of an evolution, but it's become more stress for people, more pressure.
I can totally relate with that, because we've had the day after Christmas down here is called Boxing Day. They are having Boxing Day sales, and all the shops were packed to capacity. No car parks available anywhere, and I would not have gone in there if you had paid me, because of the amount of people that would have been in there.
Not gonna do it.
Yeah, it sounds like the equivalent of Black Friday here in America.
Right?
Well, they have here too. They've started the Black Friday down here in Cyber Monday, and before it was the sales, Black Friday used to be about the bushfires down here, and not the recent bushfires, but older ones, in memoriam of the people who were lost and all the houses and properties that were burnt down. But then they've chosen to make Black Friday here about the sales as well. So another thing being copied from over there.
Just like Christmas used to be about Jesus,
Mm-hmm. 'Tis the reason for the season. But then different people say, well, his birthday wasn't even at this time, but I don't think it really matters when you celebrate it, so long as you do. And I think they kind of chop up the calendar a little bit as far as putting it in December, because we already have Easter and other things going on during that time. But I don't know. I don't know why they do what they do. Swing. So has anybody had any paranormal experiences lately, or things that you just kind of ponder on? What exactly is this? What's going on? And Moon in the chat room says Black Friday sales to honor the charcoal burned. I'm not even going to say that. Never mind.
I can only imagine.
I shall pause. I don't know, for me it's been actually kind of quiet in my house lately. I have been working on my room and other areas for the last couple weeks, and it seems like the more I do, the more things are lightened as far as light and different things like that going on. Energy in your room or wherever you may be cleaning out things that have built up, clutter, different things like that.
I agree. We rent out our house, and so we get people here all year, especially when we're in Colorado. We pretty much don't stay in the house for the most part. It's just for profit, so we can cover the bills more or less. And so we came back because I intentionally blocked off Christmas this year, which I've never done. But it's always depressing when you know that there's people in your house for Christmas, and you don't get to have the opportunity to be there, and or for Thanksgiving when they're cooking and New Year's and all of them basically. Anyway, so I got here and there's all kinds of energies, and I'm super sensitive as it is. So I've been in a very strange, there's trails of energies. Like if you move into an apartment, let's say, and they had kids before you, young ones, let's say they had a lot of kids and they're active, So I moved into an apartment where I would see almost little kids running, but they weren't spirits. They were just leftover traces of energy. So I have that. So I have all these different cultures of energies around me. I haven't seen any actual spirits, but it's interesting. They almost come through like spirits for a split second. I felt someone behind me. And all that meant was somebody was just, because there's no ghosts here, not permanent ones, but I felt like something had just walked in and was maybe standing there for a long time. Maybe the last guest. Very strange. Almost like ghosts. They're almost like ghosts.
And that's interesting as well. When you think about The Shining and the hotel that was filmed in, people have actually taken pictures of two little girls running up the stairs in a streak of light. Basically, they look like streaks of a form of a person. And different things like that.
That's exactly what they look like. They look little, either light or shadow streaks going by you. It's exactly what they look like.
So to me, they could be residual energies that are running around, or for these two little girls in this certain hotel, those are thought forms, because people always think of twin girls in the hallway wanting to play, which I don't think I'd play with them either. But the different thought forms build it, and there they are in a picture, even though there is no history of two girls who had passed away being in that hotel.
I 100% agree. I think there's even when people, I think we've had kind of a similar discussion before, where there are people who come up with these shadow man type of theories and all of these different, chupacabras, whatever it is, these fantasy creatures. And I do believe in fantasy creatures on a different dimension, but I think that just with our thoughts, just as we are manifestors and we can manifest our own reality, with that many people thinking the same thought, can they create an image of it, It's interesting.
I don't know. No offense. I don't know about all that. I think them shadow creatures are real entities. there ain't no manifestation of a conglomeration of a mass hallucination that everybody, takes a, I don't know, 5-minute DMT trip. And it's no offense. It's no offense to me or anything, but
Always wanted to try that.
I
The
tell you,
ayahuasca ceremonies.
look,
I've always wanted to do that.
it's too bad my friend Gino has passed on. We used to get into this very discussion, about shadow beings and shadow people and what they are exactly. He liked to call them they, quote unquote, they, and he was pretty. I think he was really in touch with, well, what I consider the dark side. He would say something else, but I'm not going to get into semantics. But I asked him. I said, "Okay, you say you can see these things. What do they look like?" He said, "You ever seen Ghost with Patrick Swayze?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Remember when Willie gets shot and he dies on the street and goes, and then the shadows come up off the sidewalk and then they carry him away and they kind of all deformed looking, but they still have eyes and they kind of and they're dragging them off." He says that's what they look like. He says whoever did the artist rendition and all that special effects had to have an experience with these beings. He says that's the most accurate depiction they'd ever seen in the movie. So that's just one story that I've been told about these things.
Well, it's cool. It paints a specific picture in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny how those were quite cartoonish, but I remember when I originally watched that back in the 90s, it really freaked me out.
Well, I think they were luminescent. They blended into the back. That's the thing. They blend into the scenery, and then when they're done what they're doing, they just, they look like normal shadows. It's like camouflage, I guess. I don't know. Maybe one of these days I can find an email about it. I have tons of email of him where he wrote me about all this stuff that I'm still going through.
That's cool. You still have that. Because
he was able to work with energy. I don't know what he would do, but I had a pain in my shoulder, and I was in Scottsdale, and he was in Queen Creek. And now I'm thinking of another incident because he's done it so many times. This incident, I was at his house, and he says, "All right, I'll take care of the pain in your shoulder blade." So he stands behind me, and I'm like, "Oh man, whatever you're doing, that feels pretty good. It's pretty warm, pretty hot, right?" Felt like he was massaging me. And my ex-girlfriend at the time, or ex-fiance, was witnessing the whole thing. And after everything was said and done, I said, "What'd you do, Gino?" I said, "I didn't know your thumbs were that strong." And Jamie said, "He didn't touch you at all." I said, "What?" He's like, "Nope, he didn't touch you at all. His hands were like that, like minuscule away from you, but not touching you." But I felt like there was whole hands massaging my shoulder, getting that kink out, that burning sensation that I get in my nerves. So he had some sort of talent. I'll give it that.
Yeah, that reminds me of something I was talking about just the other day, where a particular person that came into my life for a short period had shown me, I believe it was last Sunday, when we had Andre Knight and Oksana on talking about Real Jedi, but talking about the Force, and this person actually showed me how you can feel another person's energy, and it's actually, you can use it for healing and different things like that. And I can feel him touching me, and I'm looking back, and he's only about an inch or more away from touching me, but I could still feel it. I could feel that force coming from that person.
It's kind of like Reiki, but I know it's kind of different from Reiki, because Reiki is like when they move the energies around, and I've had Reiki done. It was very interesting, but I had it done by a man who was extremely masculine. So I had all this masculine energy. He fixed my energy, but I had this like residual of his energy because I'm an empath. It was interesting. But I know what you're talking about. I've had, it's people who are, that's a lot of Eastern, that's an Eastern belief, kind of with Tai Chi and some forms of karate. It was somebody who did karate and did that same thing where you can actually feel it. And it's like, it's centered, it's focused. It's different than Reiki. I think they're two different, they're the same thing, but they're two different forms in a way. of.
Well, it's like different forms of mastery, different, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual, but I have gone to different religions throughout my life, and I think everybody has a little piece of the truth. I don't think there's one church that has the whole and complete gospel or different truths that we need to know. I think everybody's got a little pinch of it. That's why everybody needs to work together. But I think also with Reiki and the Force and other things like that, they kind of all go together, and all of these have different portions that you do need to utilize and use in your life. It's just a matter of discovering it and putting it into action.
Yes, yeah, that's what I watched on YouTube. I spoke about this before. It was Standing Elk, Chief Standing Elk. And if you Google him, you can find his YouTube stuff. And part of it was talking about how we all have Reiki within us, and how with Reiki focuses on moving energies with your body, you can actually heal with your mind as well as your body. My friend did some light healing on her cat, and it sounds silly, but this cat was going to die. I mean, if she didn't. And she literally saved it by doing all of this research on energy healing. And I 100% believe that she did it. She's a very powerful, strong being. She's spiritual. I wouldn't call her a psychic, but she did it. She saved her cat just with using light energy and visualization and all, Reiki and all that combined. I think it's all kind of the same thing. And I think we all have those abilities. It's not like a superpower, right? Like we all have this within us. It's like meditation that you have to kind of just gain control of it, that's the challenge, really.
Yeah, it's kind of like, having musical or artistic abilities. We all have some different variation of it. It just depends on how much you practice it. Like ESP, we all can do it. Some are better than others, but it's just a matter of how often you practice it in your life.
I think ESP can be one of those things that's so closely connected. I think that is like the sixth sense. I think it is related to intuition. And even just when you see someone, you can just know where they're at. I read this thing where when they get overly Botoxed, which is a common thing where I'm at, when they get overly fillers and Botox and they're having a conversation, us as humans, we tend to replicate the facial expressions of the person that we're making eye contact with. And the people with Botox aren't able to make those expressions. So it actually throws us off, not just because it looks funny, but because we don't know how to react to it. Because as humans, we pick up on those facial expressions, to know how they're feeling, if that makes sense. It's kind of funny, You don't know what they're thinking or what they're feeling because their face is shot up.
Yeah, I see a lot of women with Botox where I work. I mean, it's like, okay, you done all this to look young, but did you get the guy?
Did it work?
Did it work? Was it successful? Are you having operating systems on a regular basis? Are you discussing backroom politics?
I think it's a matter of keeping the guy. When you hit a certain age, they get that threat, especially with those older business women, leaving their wives for younger women. That's the whole stereotype, but it's true. It's genetically true, in a way. If you're an alpha male,
older women like younger men. How I know this, because when I was younger, all the older women just, forget it. Now I'm in my mid-40s. I don't exist.
Now the younger women probably like you.
No, they don't. No, they say you're old, you gross dad age, even when they're in their 20s or even early 30s. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not even in my 50s yet still, but it doesn't matter.
I think it's all on the individual, though. I mean, there's a lot of immature people. It doesn't matter what age they are, and that's the truth. It's a matter of, and that's why, people will make friends with people in different age brackets or date or marry people that are in different age brackets. Most of my friends are about 12 to 15 years older than me, so I don't relate to the people born in the 90s. I don't relate to them at all.
Me either.
No, I just they're a whole different species. I mean, I'm a little older than that, but I still like even within a couple years of when I was born, the significant change of someone even close to even younger than me by like 3 years is like it's crazy.
Well, the problem is people in general have elected to become dog moms or dads or cat ladies, cat moms. You know, I know plenty of eligible bachelorette women around my age. No, because of something or another, they just elected to put all affections aside, and we're going to give all my love and affection to Buffy. And that's and it's a trend now.
I'm an animal lady. It's gross. I'm an animal lady.
I love animals too. Don't get me wrong, but well, I'm talking about people who substitute the affection of animals for humans. This is what I'm talking about.
I think technology is responsible for that because that's just scary.
Look,
or illegal.
People may screw their virtual computers and whatnot, but let me tell you something else. Substituting, saying I'm a dog grandma, I'm a dog mom. You know, to me, it's a scary thing. It's like going after strange flesh in a way, even though you may not physically be doing anything. And then even, it's just, I have seen so much fricked up stuff in my life. You know, you walk in, you're like, what the, yeah. And, like one time I ran away screaming. I meant to say, literally, seriously. Want to hear a horror story? Here's a horror story.
Kind of scared. I'm scared already.
Oh, here's a horror story.
Lay it on.
Okay. Back in the days of Yahoo, and that was the social media, you know, right. I worked all odd hours, you know, midnight, second shift, you know, go to work at 3 a.m., get off at 2, well, just crazy stuff. So I met this gal. She seemed nice, talked to her a few times, met her a few times, hung out. She had this big, huge dog. Okay, not a big deal. It was a big deal until the first time I spent the night. I'm not going to get graphic. So we're laying in bed. And that's fine. And then all of a sudden, here comes the frickin' dog. All right. The dog lays right between us. Now, she straddles this dog, like one leg underneath it, the other leg on it. She's hugging this thing, and she starts kissing it. And the dog's licking her mouth, and she's licking the dog.
Yeah, that's gross.
And I got up, and I said, I'm going to leave. She goes, why? I said, well, evidently you and the dog are having a much more good time than I are. I said, I'm the third wheel here. Oh, don't go.
I don't.
I'm like, no, you love your dog too much. Just see you goodbye. Have fun.
The sad thing is you are not the first person to tell me almost a very similar story.
No, it's just, what do you do? Put peanut butter down there? Come here, Fluffy. I don't get it.
No. There was actually a kid in like middle school we called Peanut Butter.
Oh, jeez.
It was just a rumor, but
this rumor was in Michigan too, back up 35 years ago. But let's hear it.
We called him Peanut Butter for like 8 years. I am not kidding you. Like he was Peanut Butter. Well, okay, I'm exaggerating. Maybe like 6 years, but he was always Peanut Butter. And the funny part is, I still don't remember his name.
Peanut Butter.
He was Peanut
Peter
Butter.
Pan was his name.
I don't know. I think that was another one they used. Yeah, for sure. I mean, but this totally went on. But I understand, and I think a lot of that is just people's disconnect nowadays and stuff. You know, I can't tell you, and I'm all for open relationships if that's what you're into.
Not with dogs, no.
But the polyamory thing, when it becomes a trend, okay. When it becomes a trend, I think if you're in a relationship with someone and you decide to do these things, that's all totally cool. But when you are strictly polyamory, how is someone ever supposed to give you their heart if you're just telling them flat out,
look,
I can
you know what these labels are?
All at the same time.
These labels are all descriptions and guises to give people themselves permission to go and be slutty. And let's be honest with each other. This stuff has been going on since
I think it's people afraid to get hurt
beforehand.
I think it's people afraid to get hurt who have been with other people in the past that have been that way, and so they look back and they're like,
way.
It is. And I think it's also disconnect. It's disconnect. You have all of these people. Like I can talk to way more people than I've ever talked to in my life if I just stayed on my computer or my phone all day.
Right.
No, I do love to watch YouTube, but I can talk to way more people. Anyone that I want to talk to, any crush that I've ever had, any friend that's ever done me wrong, I can contact right now at the click of a button. But as far as people being face to face, it's all messed up. There is no reading people. Same with the Botox, same idea. There's no reading people and using that intuition on reading people. We have a natural ability for that. Imagine you're on your first date, or when you're a teenager and you're on a first date with a girl. Not all men do this, correct? Because they're not all connected to their intuition. But don't you like look for the signal to let's go to first base first? And that's what I'm saying. In general, right?
Oh my gosh, let me tell you.
Nobody knows where the signal is. The signal is lost.
You know what? And if I'm getting mixed signals or no signals, I'm going to say something. I'm going to say, you know what? I might be a stupid man. I've been on a dating game for over a decade. I think I like you. I think you like me. I've been blunt like that to women, and the look on their faces are like, "Hey, I let the cat out the bag." Other women would be cool with it, like, "Oh, at least I don't have to pussyfoot around and dilly, or whatever."
Yeah.
He's telling
me. One of those guys that's a story later where you're like, he just forced his lips, especially with the Me Too. That's like, oh my gosh, he tried to stick his tongue down my throat. Well, he just misread the signal sometimes.
No, I wouldn't do that. I try to hold your hand or put my arm around you first. I wouldn't even try to kiss the girl first. If she was receptive to me holding her hand, okay, that's cool. All right, get comfortable with that. Shit, like you did when you were 15, come on. Seriously.
Remember that? Exactly.
Because you don't know this woman's boundaries, at least, I don't. And usually I'd say, I'd ask, is this okay? Is this cool? Put my arm around you. Is that all right? Yeah, it's fine. Just blunt ask permission, because
if you can't tell.
Well, nowadays I hear and see videos, big toe, men going their own way, and these younger generation guys actually filming women on video of them getting actual permission to have sex and intercourse, and they did it in their own free will and volition, because men are afraid now to get sued for accused of rape and all this. I mean, that's how bad society's gotten, and I'm not going to point fingers and say who's to blame.
It's creating mixed signals, not just with men and women, but it's just creating mixed signals because people aren't using their own intuition. They're relying on external forces.
They're too busy swiping left and right.
Yeah, they're not looking at their own intuition. Like, you can Google anything nowadays, like I could fix my car right now if I wanted to, like everything with it. If I wanted to, I have, it's amazing. And I'm like, where the heck was this when I needed it, when I didn't have the money to pay for repairs like this? And I could have so easily just bought a part and installed it myself. In a way, I'm a little jealous. I'm a little jealous of the younger generation now, because they have everything. But in a way, I feel bad for them, because they're not able to enjoy things.
They'll never know what it's like to go to a video store on a Friday night and look at all the awesome B movies that you never heard of. Then come back with a stack of 12.
Sneak into the adult section. They'll never know, because they have it at their fingertips. They'll never know what it's like to sneak into the dirty section.
To stick it in. That's right. They'll never know what it's like to stick it in. They'll never know.
To stick your head in the dirty section when you go in like Virgin Records or an old like movie store like Blockbuster. I don't know. They used to have those. They took them away for a while.
We had to download the new release. You had to get up and get gas and go to the store and buy the new release. What?
And you needed to know where that place was. You couldn't map it. That's the other thing. You could not map anything. You had to be like, okay.
In the know.
Yeah. And I don't know where I'm going, but I know it's on this corner somewhere, and I'm going to just slow down and look at the house numbers now.
What you mean phones used to be attached to walls?
What is that? People make fun of millennials, but actually the millennial generation started at like 1980, 1981. So the actual it stopped at 1991. Yeah, look it up. Yes, the millennials. Everyone.
They changed.
The 90s children.
You know why I don't buy that? I've read it, and technically you're right. But you know why I don't buy that is because like years ago, like turn of the century. They were called like Generation Y or Generation Z or some shit. Suddenly they became millennials around 2006, and then that changed in Wikipedia. So I never believe whatever.
It all got messed up, but technically millennials were supposed to be from 1981 to 1991. And those aren't what everyone else considers to be millennials. It's like 1991 to like
I consider
like
anybody born 2000 or post 2000 millennials. If you're born 1999 or before, you're like Generation Y or something. You're not a millennial.
That makes more sense. Like that's common
millennial to me is because right now, if you were born in 2000 this year,
aren't those children if they were born past 2000 though?
What's that?
Aren't they like children if they're born past 2000?
Yeah, but this year, if somebody was born in 2000, this year they'd be 20 years old already. You're a freaking millennial.
No.
Welcome to the new millennium, bitch. Sit down and go to your safe spoon, your safe space.
Sit down and be
Colleges have safe spaces. High schools are considering giving children mental health days off because high school is too stressful. You know what they used to tell us?
I kind of agree with that one.
No, I don't.
From a person that struggled with ADD really bad,
You know what? I struggle with that.
You can take them
shit.
anyway.
Nobody diagnosed
just
me
study
with
at
that.
home.
Seriously, when I was, I don't know. They used to tell us to suck it up and go. I mean, we did, and I think I did have a learning disability growing up because I couldn't keep my attention. I was bored all the time. I'm like, I already know this shit. Come on, give me something new. I was fidgety, but I wasn't a disruption in class. But looking back now with the autism and the ADD and the HDD, the hyper,
they don't care. They don't care though. Everyone has their own. Our brains. I think all of these disorders. I mean, yeah, a lot of them are corrected or connected. I'm sorry, not corrected, but they're corrected as well. A lot of them are connected because they all have to do with the chemicals in your brain. So it's really hard to diagnose what it actually is. I mean, they said I was bipolar for so long.
For me, I was bored because I knew the material as a kid. And the teacher, I mean, it was literally boring. There was no challenge to the thought process. Like I can see now at my daughter at 7.5. I remember when I was in the second grade versus how it's second grade now. 30 some odd years later, almost 40. And it's like they're doing so much more now to expand the children's brains on one hand. Then on the other hand, you got Common Core. We're going to do math the long way. I'm not going to get into it, but it's funny.
Oh no, I agree with that. That's insane. I've seen the math now. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like are you doing this for your entertainment? Just so like, let's do this the long way. I think that's so stupid. I mean, I understand where they're coming from, but like for me, like there's things like history. I hated history. I hated it because they would teach the same thing over and over. I didn't learn, and also I didn't learn about any other countries. And in every other country in the world, you learn about the history of other countries. And for the most part, most of my history, I don't know if I just got a bad batch, but probably. I mean, from middle school all the way through high school, like all I heard about was American history. And that's all they taught, basically. No, and a little bit about the Egyptians. Just a tiny bit.
We got world history, American history, culture, literature, arts. I guess Soro was a different plan. But they also were taking things out like in my 12th grade year, it was the last year for the elective for the Vietnam class. It counted as a history elective, like a history class, right? Well, the school board said the kids don't need to learn about Vietnam anymore.
Never learned about it.
We were the last class ever to be taught about. And the Vietnam War technically lasted from 1945 to 1975. We didn't get involved until later, but that thing was going on since 45. Over there.
But why wouldn't that be relevant? Like I feel like I could have just went. I know I went to really bad
because they said,
the
school board is classifying it like the government as a police action since it was never officially declared a war. I'm like, that's such horse shit. Come on. This was 1993.
We didn't even get World War II. That was clearly a war, and we didn't even get information on that.
Look, they've been.
I did my own research later in life. They've been
glorifying Third Reich for fucking over 40 years on the History Channel. Look on Roku or any of these streaming services. They glorify the shit out of the Nazis. So I don't. These we're gonna. There's so much more to World War II.
I never looked at it that way, but they kind of do on some of the programs.
What about like you ever see them pushing and doing specials? how did Canada help us during World War II? Or how about other countries? What was going on with them, man? I'm sick of hearing about,
Oh, exactly. I mean, I didn't know anything about Italy until I made friends with some Italians. I really didn't. I mean, they didn't teach us anything in school, and there's hardly anything about it, like, unless you go and look for it. I was like, oh, that's very interesting. They taught us all kinds of stuff just they taught me all kinds of stuff just by telling me. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I don't know anything about that. And like it's interesting though. I did watch a program recently about France and what the schools teach the French children and how they teach them about Americans. And I've always wondered, I mean, it could be different now, but for the most part, they teach the French a lot of negative things about America, and they kind of demonize America a little bit, which is why when people went over there for so long, they were getting treated like crap. I mean, now it's probably
because Americans are
but
okay. I'll give you a good example of something happened at work the other day. It's funny, but if I was a foreigner and if I witnessed this, I would have been like, "Guess what happened on my trip to America?"
Girl, you ain't gonna believe this. You better sit down and grab your cup of coffee.
That's right. Grab your coffee. Okay, this is gonna get good. So I was sitting there, I was checking somebody out. And now I work with a fella named Tim. Tim is a really great guy, and I don't know what mental challenge he has. He's a little slow. I don't know if it's autism or something like that, but he's a hard worker. He's a really great guy. He's very quiet, soft-spoken, right? So I'm slinging the groceries through, and he's bagging them. And very nicely and calmly, he says to the old woman, who's probably about 80, he says, "Ma'am, would you like your milk in a bag?" She whips her head around like somebody turned it like with a cane. She goes, "Sonny, everybody knows you do not bag milk. The plastic kills the fish. It kills the sharks. It kills the eels and the wildlife. Boy, you as a murderer, you're going to be murdering fishes. Everybody knows you don't take plastic at all. I can't believe you sell plastic." It was like she was possessed or something.
For shame.
No, it was like and he looked at me. And I put up my hand. I'm like, "Don't worry about it, dude. She's wacky, okay? Just don't worry about it." And she looked at me. She goes, "Can you believe the nerve?" I said, "Yeah, plastic." I said, "Damn them for making money," And she just and I said, "While we're at it, I said, if we're talking about the environment and wanting to save it, I said, let's kill all SUVs and all the rich people who are spending $75 to fill their tanks." And she just looked at me, and I'm like, "Yeah, that's right. So shut your pie hole," I'm thinking, because you can't sit there and you call him a murderer. And then I think this is the mentality of some people out there, and they're wandering out there. They're wandering around. They're out there on the loose. These are the wackos. These are the ones let loose out the asylum that should be locked up. This is just my opinion. Yeah. But there was no rhyme or reason to... You're murdering. You're a murderer. You're murdering the fish.
To attack that person. I watch those public freakouts on YouTube.
Oh, if I had a camera, it'd be 6 million hits by today. I guarantee it.
But some people just pull their phones out nowadays. I was totally laughing with my mom the other day. I'm like, we can all literally sit around in a circle and just record each other and be like, "This is going on YouTube." They'll pull out their phones and they're recording, the employees, but they're not recording what they have done to provoke the employees. And sometimes it's funny. I'll admit, sometimes it's funny and uncalled for, especially if it's someone on the outside who just decides to pull out their phone and they're like, "Look at this spat," right? That's the stuff that goes viral. But if you just pull out your phone, you're sitting here trying to entrap someone after you have totally pissed them off. And you pull out your phone and you're like, and you're trying to just capture them freaking out after what you've said. I mean, that's just rude,
Oh, let me tell you, when I worked in the casino back in Maryland, and I'd be involved in like medical emergencies or car accidents or fights or scuffles, people had their phones out, and the first thing I'd say, if that ends up on YouTube, you're sued. And I've never seen myself on YouTube, and I'm just waiting for the day I do,
And they say it all the time, and that's probably the key words to say to the person reporting.
Oh, I'd always say it.
Yeah, that's
And I know
a lot
we're
of them.
supposed
They
to
say you're doing is illegal. It's not.
Yeah, we're supposed to be talking paranormal, but a lot of this stuff to me is paranormal, and the paranormal to me is actually normal. So,
well, no, seriously, it's like today. I joke a lot, but it's true. It's like living in a Philip K. Dick novel. We have FaceTime, which he called the vid phone. Okay, in one book, I think it's Man in the High Castle. Maybe I could be mistaken, but one of those books, he talks about one of the characters getting out Branda Smiles 20-pack marijuana cigarettes that you can go buy in the store. You can go buy a pack of marijuana joints right now, pretty much in the store, pretty much by the same damn name. Okay. He predicted like a lot of the invisible suits. And what's that?
I was just saying High Castle.
Oh,
you said by
the Man in the High Castle.
I know what it is.
Yeah.
Thanks, so.
About the Germans won the war and how they split up America between the Germans and the Japanese. I've
seen the show a little bit.
I haven't seen it. I started reading the book. I'm doing the book first before I delve into the show. But,
oh yeah, I don't know. I'll read the book and then I'll watch the show, and you're always disappointed by the show or the movie because the book is always so much better. It's got so much more detail and paints so many more pictures than the movie ever could.
Check this out. Let's talk paranormal Mandela effect a moment now.
All right. Do we want to go there? Because we have like probably 7 minutes before we go to break.
Yeah, this is plenty of time because it's a
all
quick
right.
7 minutes. So Melody and I are collecting Hot Wheels, and we're doing a YouTube and we already have a Facebook group and whatnot. So I'm browsing eBay the other day, and now to let everybody out there know, if you know or don't know, Hot Wheels, when they die-cast like a Ford or a Nissan or a Lamborghini, they're licensed. They get permission to do that, to use the emblems and everything. That's what makes them collectible, because only certain stores do certain releases, and I'll leave it at that. So I found it was manufactured in 2003. It was a VW Volkswagen bus hauler, kind of like a gas hauler with Shell gas station. And on the side, it had the old Shell emblem with the word Shell on it at the bottom, just like how we all remember it. Nowadays, of course, there is no word on the actual emblem of Shell, and this is one of the things that people say, oh, Mandela effect. Well, here's a residual of how it used to be. Because I remember the word Shell used to be right on the Shell of the gas station. I mean, they were all over the neighborhood where I grew up. So to tell me that I misremembered is a little, pisses me off, because I know for a fact. So you can't tell me that Mattel got it wrong in the licensing, which they got permission from VW and Shell to use, the emblems and the logos in 2003. So they don't just make up their own. So that's
they had the
somebody
Shell
that
on the ones down here too.
What's that?
They had the Shell name underneath the Shell down here as well. So you're not going crazy.
Yeah, that's where it's located on this die-cast vehicle, right on the side, right at the bottom there. So I put in a bid for it, and I had to put in a higher bid because it was already up at $12. I'm like, oh man, it seems shit, because it was a special edition one. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get it. So if I end up getting it, I should post a picture of it anyway. Next time I get the chance.
Right.
Because, and speaking of which, the Ford emblem they say now is the pig curly Q. That never was there growing up. My father worked for Fords. It was always the old style serif, fancy cursive writing. Mm-hmm. And I did find, before I moved from Maryland, it was in an antique store. This guy had an old engine block of a Ford, and it had the old, molded right on there, Ford, right in the metal, had the old F serif instead of the old piggy curly Q that you see now. So there are bits and pieces of what some would say residual effects or residual proof. Me, I think it's a great deception, kind of like how Philip Dick wrote the Cosmic Puppets. Cosmic Puppets basically has the Mandela effect. Guy returns to his hometown. Where's, X amount, or like State Street, and where's Joe's drugstore? Shouldn't it be here? And basically he figures out a way to uncover the illusion and get at what's really there. Like the bar was like, say, a barber shop, and through the book they go through how do they go about doing that. It's pretty wild, but it's a very Mandela effect-ish kind of theme if people are interested. It's called the Cosmic Puppets. Sorry, I'm on a rant. I'm just tired and been a heck of a holiday.
Oh, for sure. I know some lady at Walmart asked me, she's like, "Are you ready for Christmas?" I'm like, "I'm ready for Christmas to be over. I'm done with the holiday season." It's been so draining for me, but like I've had 12 people in my house. Finally, we're back down to 7, hoping to get a 5 here pretty soon. But yeah, it's been so draining and not like Christmas or the holiday season at all this year. It's been so weird, different, and drab. But the Mandela effect just blows my mind. And like you're saying with the Ford keys, I've been collecting Ford keys, and I think I have one in my collection that shows the true one. And then, like you're saying, the rest of them are curly cues and such. But yeah, there's so many different things with the Mandela effect, and it seems like there's more and more and more. But I think CERN is still playing with the God particle, or perhaps it's just there's different dimensions colliding. But why all of a sudden is it so rampant,
Well, I heard Chuck Missler talk about when you break things down to its minutest form, all of a sudden it's everywhere at once. And,
right.
and that's like the whole Reader's Digest version to this whole long dissertation he gave on like, I suppose the biggest thing that could be big and the smallest thing that could be small. It breaks down so small that it breaks apart and it's everywhere at once sort of thing. And then he goes through how this is proved scientifically. And I wish I could rattle, what video you could go right to and see what talk, but I don't know because I've, like I said, seen and watched so much.
Well, if you do find it, make sure you share it in the chat room there in Spreaker. That way people can check that out. But we might as well go to our first musical break because it is a 12-minute break. And we have I Love It by Fluid. And then we have Mystique with Beauty and the Beast with Rampage. And Time for School. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this musical break.
In my left hand, I'm ballin', making buckets back to back like I was Stefan. Better yet, I'm Dale Jackson, so don't treat me like the next man. And I'm kind of a real big deal, so don't be out here second guessing. Anyway, I make my pay and live this California lifestyle. Sunshine, loud packs, and chicks that love to get wild. That's how we do it every day. Slipping, sliding through the traffic on a mission for the day. Clearing marks about my way. Really got no time for y'all today. And all the craziness y'all talk, but never get your story straight. See me out here living great. I don't give a about all that hate. And when it comes to kicking game, I give you all that you can take. Trying to do it big, got no complaints. Every morning eating steak. They say I'm wrong for showing out, but I'ma do it anyway. Trust and thing ain't nothing, bitch, cause I can do it any day. And it don't matter where I go, I always represent the yay. I'm so in love with this lifestyle. Anything I want, I say the word, I get it right now. Boppers used to hate me, now they tell me I'm a tight now. Swagger through the roof, got everybody on my height now. So in love with this lifestyle. I love it, and I love it, and I love it. So in love with this lifestyle. Anything I want, I say the word, I get it right now. See me, I'm out here getting it and loving how I live. Best believe if I do something, I'm a stupid, do it big. And this hustling is my gig, so don't you ask me what I stand for. Stacking while I'm macking, trying to earn myself a couple Lambos. Yeah, you know them toys for them big boys. Emperor of sorts and all you other players decoys. Meaning you're not the real deal. Keep an appetite for dollars that I never miss a meal. All you suckers need to chill. I'm just trying to stack a meal and pull the baddest bras around and let us show they sex appeal. Little bit of Netflix, then we chill. Lose them close keep on them heels. Working like a 9 to 5 and go right back to chasing skrill. I bring that real, never that phony. BS, y'all be stressing, put it down just like an OG. Perform these cookies, take flight. Some of y'all just out here acting, I'm a boss in real life. I'm so in love with this lifestyle. Anything I want, I say the word, I get it right now. Boppers used to hate me, now they tell me I'm they tight now. Swagger through the roof, got everybody on my height now. So in love with this lifestyle. I love it, and I love it, and I love it. So in love with this lifestyle. Anything I want, I say the word, I get it right now. Keep it more 100 than a C note. Hall of Fame spitting, representing with these pimp quotes. Don't try to front, you know this shit's dope. Question is, will I ever fail? My answer is no. I make this hustling look amazing. Put it down, doper than a blunt of purple hazing. Spicy on the mic, I bring the fire like a Cajun. Scoville, making haters sweat when I be blazing. Leaning to the side, haters everywhere. Yeah, I hear them talking, but they simply wasting air. Can't understand the reason that they stay in my affairs. But I'm major with my movements, getting money everywhere. I'm so in love with this lifestyle. Anything I want, I say the word, I get it right now. Boppers used to hate me, now they tell me I'm they tight now. Swagger through the roof, got everybody on my height now. So in love with this lifestyle. And I love it, and I love it, and I love it. So in love with this lifestyle. Anything I want, I say the word, I get it right now. I love it, so in love with this lifestyle. I love it, and I love it, and I love it. So in love with this lifestyle. Anything I want, I say the word, I get it right now.
Spark so much fire, think I woke up the dragons. I'm the new beast, spitting apocalypse for a fantastic. Got the power from God, made the rest hard to breathe. I'm on the surface, flow so powerful, industry don't fit me. Spark so much fire, think I woke up the dragons. I'm a new beast, spitting apocalypse for a fantastic. Got the power from God, made the rest hard to breathe. I'm on the surface, flow so powerful, industry don't fit me. You people fire well, I'm the kind that made you inspire. Smoke detector can't take the battery is what I require. I am led to put me out, you need a metal lid. Stop, drop, and roll to your nearest exit. Not the one to play, we'll make you go back and edit. Make you jump double dutch till your leg legs. Head knobbing with the flow, man, I need a helmet. I done screwed up these verses and got them pregnant. One of a kind, and chick can step to my comparison. F the world up with this, man, I should just marry it. My words are weapons, biggest tools that can't fit in your kid. They sell it fake, hoping I'd rather kill your hope like ISIS. Still killing it, infinite chick, the status I'm getting the win. Froze the flows with multiple codes, my symbols grows, I'm cold as snow. I know the principles and we feasting the beast with the dragon relief. When it happens, it show that I don't play though. Step into us will be so fatal. Spark so much fire, think I woke up the dragons. I'm the new beast, spitting apocalypse for a fantastic. Got the power from God, made the rest hard to breathe. I'm on the surface, flow so powerful, industry don't fit me. Spark so much fire, think I woke up the dragons. I'm a new beast, spitting apocalypse for a fantastic. Got the power from God, made the rest hard to breathe. I'm on the surface, flow so powerful, industry don't fit me.
Hey, it's swag. I done got back in my bag. I done had people laugh. I done seen people pass. I spaz like spaz. The garbage man and they trash. This of course I can't crash. This a race and I'm fast. I pass the fake and put all of it last. Dragon so I clash. I hide it all in the stash. We are diamonds, they are brass. I'm connected with no lag. She a spin 30 for a bag. That's my wife and I'm glad. Michael Myers with his stabs. Ali with his jazz. A scientist in the lab. JJ Watt in his past. The amigos with the dab. This is why I ride. And I got the nag.
Mystique in the back. Money tall like Shaq. Weapons like Iraq. I am cancer in a pack. The 9/11 attack. We don't know no slag. You can't hold us back. Rock and roll with that.
So much fire, think I woke up the dragons. I'm the new beast, spitting apocalypse for a fantastic. Got the power from God, made the rest hard to breathe. I'm on the surface, flow so powerful, industry don't fit me. Spark so much fire, think I woke up the dragons. I'm a new beast, spitting apocalypse for a fantastic. Got the power from God, made the rest hard to breathe. I'm on the surface, flow so powerful, industry don't fit me. Do you believe? Are you ready? It's time for school. Roll out your red carpet. You gotta love to learn and have fun. It's time for school.
Do you believe? Are you ready? Get ready. It's time for school. Roll out your red carpet. You got to love to learn and have fun. It's time for school.
The funniest memory that I could recall is getting up to shopping my pencil as a kid, showing off my new outfit from head to toe. Yo, I love the life of 3 9-year-olds with hyper goals. My mind be blown. Don't get upset when the answer's wrong. Pray for strength and you'll survive to be strong. I am a teacher, it's how I define myself. Help me vibe so well. Don't stress, do your best and forget the rest. Mama made sure we pray to God, highly blessed, and I am honored. No weapon formed against us should prosper. Don't ever forget. And I bet when you enter into school, you'll feel ultimate. No consequences of your accomplishments. Move away from the negativity, it got you bit. And if you getting in the midst, just take the time and repent. Stay focused, get a pencil, write about the lesson. Raise your righteous hand, find the answer to questions. Can be your main plan, leave a saucy impression. You are your own fan, you got this, is what I recommend. Do you believe? Are you ready? It's time for school. Roll out your red carpet. You gotta love to learn and have fun. It's time for school.
Do you believe? Are you ready? It's time for school. Roll out your red carpet. You got to love to learn and have fun. It's time for school. Back then, I loved school. I was cool. I was putting in my dues. I ain't wanna be no fool. Mama had it poppin'. School supplies and shopping. Success was an option. Math had me locked in, but English was my topic. Lunchtime, I had it rocking. Lunch tables was knocking, and we wasn't stopping. In gym, I was good from the 3. Like Stockton, music class, I had everyone stuck. They was watching. We wore bow straps with retros and the watches. Love life, humble yourself. That's my creed. Think with your mind and heart, you will achieve. Pray on it, give it to God, and proceed. Your goals, ambition, and God is all you need. Imagination and will is something we can't teach. Remember Dr. King, he had a whole dream. You can do whatever you want. I believe.
Do you believe? Are you ready? It's time for school. Roll out your red carpet. You gotta love to learn and have fun. It's time for school.
Do you believe? Are you ready? It's time for school. Roll out your red carpet. You got to love to learn and have fun. It's time for school.
Do you believe? Are you ready? It's time for school. Roll out the red carpet, yeah.
Welcome back, and thanks so much for hanging out with us tonight. Tonight we have the Paradox Paranormal Forum. On the panel tonight we have Miss Mia Savage, SleepyDave Davenport, our weekday host, and Robert White from the other side of the world, Australia. Hey guys, welcome back, and thanks so much for hanging out with me.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Blimey.
Robert comes
Blimey.
from the land down on. Is the sun shining there, Ron? Can you hear me? I'm on top of you. Wait. Hello.
Maybe if I flush my toilet the same time Robert flushes his toilet, we can produce a vortex, which will connect our worlds, and we'll just
Wait,
travel
maybe
free.
it'll suck him back up to Colorado. Let's try.
Narnia. It's Narnia.
Narnia.
It's called a reverse swirly, man.
Hang on to your shorts. It's going to
Bring
be a
some
bumpy
polished
ride.
stones. You're going to need it for the ride. No.
And your tinfoil hats as well.
That's right. Never.
A mile marker 420.
So we did have a question from the chat room before we carry on with any more of our shenanigans. From Darren, he's asking, what is your favorite device of choice right now? And we'll start with Miss Mia. So this is for a paranormal investigation.
Oh, my favorite device. Okay, so I do like, basically I'm a radar, but so I would say like.
Are you a radar lover though?
My my chakras, and I would say without any devices, your own intuition, even just closing your eyes and feeling the energy around you, even if there's no ghost, you can feel the energy. And tune into it. But as far as like devices, I've always loved the Ghost Radio app because it's the only one that has been that I've used that has done things that I don't do, basically. Ghost Radio app.
Awesome. What about you, Sleepy?
What do I? Oh, I don't use anything to investigate per se. The things that I have caught have been on accident. When I first moved in here, I was playing Barbies with Melody, and we were recording, I don't know, something, and the Barbies were saying no, or she was like, having the Barbie say no, and I was saying no, and then when you play back the audio on the video, you hear a very evil growls, no, and then fuck you, like that, yeah, and then Melody heard it. Melody's the one that caught it. She goes, Daddy, what's that voice swearing? I go, what voice swearing in the video? She goes, listen. She goes, and we played it back. I have it on the video on my computer somewhere.
It's like backmasking. They call it backmasking.
Yeah, but it was live, like right there, And there was other few instances. There was another one where we were playing, and we were trying to get the dolls to bed, so we were all saying shh. So then we heard a very evil shh, underneath, and then like kind of like an evil, not like a growlish kind of thing, but. This isn't, our house isn't haunted, so per se, I mean, objects don't reappear and disappear, stuff doesn't fly off the walls or anything, so right. It could be any of these passing through, or, this was, back in the 50s, this whole area was a desert. It was middle of nowhere, and about a mile up the road, well, no, about 4 miles up the road, my grandparents used to own a ranch. And they owned it for many years before they rezoned it commercially and hiked up the taxes so much they couldn't afford it. But back in those days, this was all desert land. These were cotton, well, not too far up, but on the Indian reservation, cotton fields for miles. Arizona was like #1 producer of cotton in the world for a long time. But I'm not gonna. But that's my little quip there about getting. Sorry it was so long-winded, but I just happened to catch these things on accident. You know, I don't
that's
go
awesome.
looking.
I'm glad you brought it up because that's freaking interesting and amazing that she heard it. Did she hear it when it happened or in the video
No,
before you noticed it?
we didn't. You know who has really good evidence of this on video is Kimmy J. Kimmy J has some good audio stuff on video of some entities saying stuff, and you might want to talk to her. I don't know if she might let you use at least some of the audio or whatever. I don't know. I don't want to speak for her or anything, but.
Yeah, no worries for sure. Well, Darren also had another question, but before we get to that, let's get to Robert. Did we already ask you what your favorite tool is? I don't think we got to you yet.
Not yet. Down here, I mainly just use myself because most of the stuff that I would have to buy is too expensive to purchase and then ship down here. There are places here in Australia that do sell some of the things like the EMF detectors and multiple recorder type things, but the only tool I really have are the cameras that I have, which I have for other things as well, and an audio recorder which I picked up for $40 at Target. So they're the only two that I really use.
Target, you don't say.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's pretty much what it is.
Well, and there's a lot of apps on there, and people poo-poo it and say it doesn't really work, and how can it work in order to pick up certain things. But I think where there's a will, there's a way, and if something wants to communicate with you, it will. And they're like, well, be careful what you're saying around it, blah, blah, blah. The times I've had the best luck with it is when I've left it in a place and gone to set up other equipment, and all these words come through telling the whole story, basically, of what happened to this person as a living being and why she's stuck there in her belief of purgatory until she was released. But, I mean, I've had instances where these cell phone apps work, but other times not. And when me and I first met, she was using like a ghost radio thing on her cell phone, and it was pretty accurate with what I was picking up and what the equipment was picking up and what we also got in pictures.
Yes. I remember, well, the ghost radio app, the reason why I like it is because it works as white noise. And what confirmed it for me was I had a corgi that died on our ranch, and he died of old age. It wasn't, like anything, but he was outside of the door all the time, outside of the kitchen. And because he was just addicted to food, like if he thought I was cooking something, and he knew I would give it to him because I'm a softie, right? And so what had happened to me, and this is just one instance where that app proved itself to me. It just gives like white noise, pink noise, and it also has kind of like a built-in EMF detector. And so I went towards the door because I felt like this presence, right? And at that point, I didn't know what it was, but it was very strange because I kind of was testing it because I kind of had a feeling it was this dog's ghost, right? And so I said, who is this? Who's here? And it said dog, like right then and there. And so then I'm like, okay, so this app isn't complete BS, because I knew that was where my dog used to sit, right there. And I felt his presence, but I just was kind of testing it at that point. It was very interesting.
Oh no, I've seen more nefarious examples of entities, and excuse my language, they're fuckery. And I don't appreciate it one bit. That's why my stern stance on the whole afterlife, and this is no disrespect to anybody's belief. This is just strictly what I have come to know and to be true. Not to sound like the Mormons, if you read everything in their pamphlets, and to know that it's true, and to know that, the brainwashing is pretty apparent right there. But I digress. But that these entities they're all. I don't care who they are, what they say they are. I don't care if they. I'm Aunt May. I'm here to tell you where the hidden treasure is. No, you're a freaking familiar spirit. Everybody, see, this is so fun. God, I want to talk about this. Okay, spirituality. Everybody likes to talk about spirituality, ghosts, demons, the other side. But all right, here, how's this for fun size? So, these demons, these familiar spirits. See, Lucifer cannot be omnipresent like God, right? No. So he has a hierarchy of angels, like Satan's government, Satan's army, and he goes out and all the, you have the hierarchy of the fallen angels, and they go down, the little demons, and on and down and so forth. Everybody, whether people believe it or not, everybody is assigned a freaking demon. And they joke about it with the little angel on the one side, a little demon on the other side. They make fun of it all throughout the childhood, and and we've seen all the skits, right? But there is truth in that. And the reason is because why? Satan, Lucifer, cannot be omnipresent like God can. Okay? So he has to have these things report back to Satan, to the government. I think it's Ephesians 6. He talks about it. Principalities, powers of the air, rulers, and spiritual wickedness in high places, right? So they get to know you. They get to know your wants, know you better than yourself. They can mimic loved ones, take on forms of loved ones. Can't do it right this instant. Could back it up with biblical scripture and whatnot. But either way, this is what I believe a lot of people are fooled with. And I'm no better, like a few months back when my buddy Rich died, I was all torn up about it, and we all did a thing on it. I think Hauser was on and talking about the ghost box thing. I have to be, I'm speaking for me, I have to be careful because I don't believe that was my buddy Rich's spirit. I think it was probably the familiar spirit that knew him or knew us. And people, I think, in general, toss around that term so loosely, but they don't think they really know what it means when they talk about familiar spirits, these demonic entities that really know us. There really is a spiritual warfare going on, and it's all around us, but we can't see it because we are in, of course, physical flesh. And that's my soapbox rant. I apologize, but it's really interesting to think about on that level when you're thinking of like demons and angels and fallen angels and the really kooky, because it really does interact with our world more so than I think we realize. And as you say, Mia, and of course Tessa knows, y'all are tuned into this kind of stuff, and you can feel it and see it and deal with it how you want to, help people out. Things like that.
I've heard a lot about like generational demons being a thing.
It's true.
I don't know if I believe that people are assigned a demon. I think everyone has their own weaknesses.
No, generational curses would be true. Yeah.
I do not disregard that at all because I have met families and I have seen things. I have seen two members of the same family get possessed. Literally like their eyes glazed over, and it was on two separate occasions.
I've witnessed possession of somebody too. It was scary.
I don't necessarily. I think a lot of it has to do with our own karma. I'm not saying you're wrong, because in the paranormal community, I think the most important thing is none of us know for sure exactly what the rules are with what we cannot see.
Well, here's where the secular is.
It's all interesting.
Well, here's where the secular, I think, is correct in their. I don't want to say in their view, but or their belief of what their version of hell is, or I don't want to use the term purgatory. I don't like that. I think that's a Catholic term. I'm going to stay away from buzzwords like that. But I'll just use for an example Brian Melvin's testimony, and he was an atheist. And I don't know if you've ever heard or anything about him on YouTube, but I interviewed him back, I think in September, either here or there. But basically, hell is. You're in a prison cell, and it does describe it in the Bible, but at the same time, it's like the holodeck. He described it. He says it looks bigger inside than what it really is. He says whatever's in your mind is projected out, he says, as I was being shown hell in tours, and I was looking inside cells. He goes, it was instantly known to me or downloaded. I knew everything about this person's life, and one was a sea captain. And you relive your life in the era that you died in, and every bad thing, every pain, physically, mentally, or anguish that you inflicted on people, or your true self, that's done back to you over and over again. And sometimes he says sometimes these people would get a break and they think everything was okay. He's like, one guy would be playing pool in a pool hall, everything would be going great, he's winning, he's reliving the moment, but he really doesn't realize it. Kind of like in American Horror. And that one, the witch, the very first one about the witch is at the very end. She keeps waking up with the serial killer guy. But either way, it's kind of like that, looping over. And the demons come in.
Was that the witch one?
Yeah. But the demons come in, and this one guy's selling hell, and Brian's witnessing, and he's telling it. And he says, the demons come in, they literally, whatever this guy did to these people in this pool hall, cheat them, whatever, this was done to him, down to beatings, take him in the back alley, and the demons would literally rip his body apart, and then it would come back, like form back together, and then the torture would go over and over again with little bits of reprisal or breaks.
Oh, yes, I remember. So they had to live in kind of their own hells within that season as well. There's like towards the end, they all
like one lady's hell. One lady's hell was her mother rejected her emotionally, and she was walking down a never-ending street in London, and that was it. I mean, nobody was attacking her, but that was her personal like hell. And that's
the one that was a celebrity. She was like an unknown, working in like retail at like a
right
something.
Those people who write those scripts really do listen to, I'll say, true accounts of seeing hell, coming back, and then people becoming followers of Christ and things. I'm not trying to be like preachy here to people, but I'm just saying for my reason why it's so clear to me, and why people in general say search for the mysteries. What are the mysteries? Well, Jesus said it himself. If you can't handle the mysteries of earth, how can I tell you the mysteries of heaven? Said it like to the disciples. It's like that's a mind blow, man. He's like, you can't even understand the things of what's going on down here, and you want me to tell you what's going on up there and all the Well,
I think in life sometimes, like they say, like everything happens in threes, which I don't know. I mean, okay, sometimes it's threes, sometimes it's like everything happens at once. And I think part of that is so you can appreciate when things go well, those things, or it's just carrying out negative
so you can,
karma all at once, so you can climb to a higher level of consciousness. Like I had like literally years of just. I thought I had a curse on me. Just everything would go wrong. It was like going against the current for so long.
My whole life is one big. I could look at it like one big disaster after another. But you know what? Looking back, I have nobody to blame. But when it all comes down to it, I have nobody to blame. I lived it the way I wanted to live it.
But sometimes though, it is just clearing karma though. Like now you're in a state of peace, like the waters are calm, and you sometimes.
The waters are anything but calm in my. Hey, let me tell you, the waters are anything but calm in my world.
They will
and
be
I think if you learn from it, it's not a mistake. And this is a learning experience.
I'm just at peace in the storm. How's that? Okay. There's storms going on around me. There's my gosh, Christmas. And the days leading up to the event,
but it is calm after the storm with the holidays though, because I think that creates just an added amount of anxiety. Anybody who has, let's say, like, just for example, like a drinking problem. I dated someone who had a drinking problem, and he was a very functioning person normally, but when the holidays came around, that was the worst time for him, and for everyone else who has any sort of problem. For the rest of us, it's mainly just anxiety, right? And then it's over, it's calm. But we're looking into this new year, and this is the number 4 in numerology year. This year is all about building for the future. This is the end of a decade. And the end of a decade, like now doesn't seem like much because we're like in the 2000s. But like from the 60s to the 70s to the 70s to the 80s to the 80s to the 90s, and especially before then, there's so much of a difference. We're in the middle of a shift between the last decade and this decade, right?
People are talking on their Dick Tracy spy watches now, man. Okay, they're talking to, Hit me up, Scotty. No, seriously, they'll come up to the line. Yeah, I'll be right over, Bob. Hold on a second. Let me switch screens. I got to pay. Tick, tink. You take Apple Pay? Yeah, okay. Tick, tink.
Apple Pay. Yeah.
And sometimes I'll joke and I say, would you like a chip with that? To go in your hand. I go, oh, that'd be great. I'm like, oh, you want to take the mark of the beast? Tick, ting. You want to smack their face.
Ting. Here's your set of horns.
No.
Still no Jetson cars, though.
Here's your one-way ticket to hell. No.
Still what, Robert?
Still no Jetson cars yet.
Nope.
No.
Flying cars.
No flying. Well, they have flying cars, but not around here, man.
Exactly.
It seems like they went
called the Cybertruck.
Yeah, they went from that to vehicles that drive themselves. Okay, forget about the ones that fly. Let's just have those that drive themselves down the road. And then you see people getting hit by them and different accidents happening.
Yeah. Why did they call that?
We're still in transition, though. In 10 years, they might be flying. We don't know.
No, why did they call that one driverless car Waymo? Why? Because we have way more fascists than anybody.
Waymo, faux show.
No. I mean, who would trust themselves to a driverless car? You are an idiot, sir. Can you get the Darwin Award for the century? Anybody who signs up for one, who gets in a driverless car, you're just. Look, I picked up too many dead bodies and seen too many accidents with drivers. Now you want to drive without a driver? Oh my God! Then trust the guy who is driving. Help me.
It's more important.
I don't even like to be
watch that show with your kids. Oh, me neither. After going to Arkansas and riding with my sister, I had nightmares for a while, but I'm all better from that now.
Yeah.
Look, Melody, Melody and I witnessed a T-bone accident 1 mile up the road. I pull up right to the stoplight and I go to make a left. Now I'm looking to the left and there's a car coming straight and she's going to make a left onto the street that I'm on, but going across the road, right? Now coming from my right is this SUV barreling through. So she goes to make a left and he T-bones her. And it had it been like less than a foot, he would have gotten the passenger side. Probably would have down near almost killed her because it actually smashed the passenger side on the right rear, and it spun her car around like twice, and he did a 360 into the light pole on the corner. And Melody and I witnessed all that, and I said, see, this is why we always slow down, and we always, this is very dangerous.
Wear our seatbelt.
Wear a seatbelt.
Both ways.
I said, you see that lady? She just got out. I said, but if that lady... She goes, if that lady got hit the other car door, she would have been T-boned, she said real loud. That's right, T-boned. She goes, just like in GTA, Dad. I'm like, yup. And it's sad, but I've lived here almost 2 years. I've seen about 6 accidents at that corner. It's very dangerous. People just fly.
Well, you don't even have
people
to be
in
Scottsdale
can't wait.
Right? You don't even have to be in a big town for that to happen. When I lived in Cortez,
oh, no.
Every day while I was heading to work, same time every day, this old lady who could not even see over the steering wheel, I think she was looking underneath the top portion of it and between the dash, but every day she'd run that stop sign and almost clip me. So I learned to slow down before I went past that certain street because she was just barreling through, never paying attention to the stop sign. I always wondered what happened to her on Main Street.
To remember.
I didn't want to get hit. I'm like, dang, they need to have
yeah, I guess so.
Well, growing up, I had the opposite problem driving with my grandma. She'd drive like maybe 5 miles under the speed limit, and I'm like, Grandma, people are passing you. Hon, you can never go too slow. I'm like, yeah, you can.
You are right now.
That's just as dangerous sometimes, man, and that's why I like to drive, because I go with traffic. Generally in Scottsdale, you have 2 types. You have the super impatient, like entitled type that just cannot wait and are extremely rude. And then you've got the people that are so old that they should not be driving, and they're like snowbirds that just can't drive, and they're like, oh my gosh. And they almost cause accidents. Like, they'll just turn without even it's crazy. I had one turn. There's a lane, 2 lanes for turning, obviously. It was a left-hand turn. And the arrow came on, and I knew this lady next to me because she was like 15 feet behind the car in front of her on her phone. Like, I knew that something was going to go down, and I was in the lane next to her, and I'm like, so I'm just going to pull over a little bit. And sure enough, she took 2 lanes to make that turn and would have sideswiped me. Of course, my vehicle probably would have crushed hers. But still, I mean, like, you got to pay attention out there.
Yeah, you're usually driving a big rig.
Yeah,
You're a tiny girl in a big old car.
I'm actually, normally I drive little cars. I actually have a little car in Arizona, but it doesn't have 4-wheel drive, so I have to drive like the ex-wife, like mom mobile. But at least it's got 4-wheel drive. I mean,
the
it's
next
a
question that came up is, do you believe in holy water, or is it just water? I believe in it. I think wherever you put intent,
I do,
and so on and so forth.
Quantum physics. It's quantum physics. When you whisper prayers into water, the actual molecular change that happens with the water, you know, just like What the Bleep, that documentary, they actually show like under a super microscope the molecules of water when you whisper a prayer to it, as opposed to if you start yelling at it, like the molecules change. Like that's a literal thing. That's a literal thing in quantum physics. Mm-hmm. So why wouldn't holy water exist, especially with an energy carrier like water, you know, or air? I mean, I thought about bottling my dog's farts and giving them to my enemies.
That could work. You know, label it as a basket of like aromatherapy and perfumes.
Oh my gosh, they're so bad. But the molecular structure of I don't know why I can't say that, structure of water does change according to the energy or the words that you put into it. So even if you are not a religious person, someone who is whispering a prayer to water and then sealing it, and say you are in a really bad or negative so-called space, and you spray that water, that is changing the energy. So yes.
Sleepy?
What? I'm sorry. Melody came in.
Do you believe holy water?
I believe in holy water. In one of my videos, there was this man and he was doing something like a ritual or whatever that involves ghosts, demons, and spirits, and he had holy water with him, and the holy water protected him. That's how I know it's real.
Heck yeah.
Well, there you go.
She's smarter than most adults.
Yeah, that's how she knows.
Future Madam President Mel.
I'm not a president, dude.
No, not yet.
Oh, that's cool. You know, I don't have any. To be honest, I don't have any personal use. I never personally use holy water. I have seen like Catholics have vials of it or little bowls of it, so they say, and I've seen communion or like Catholic mass, but as me personally, but I've never personally used it or anything. It's almost using like a charm in a way. I know that sounds funny and almost sacrilegious, but I don't know. You have to be very careful, I think, when basically you're not you personally, but people in general, when they're using holy water to cast out demons and in the name of God. And I'm not talking about, you know, people mock, you know, may the power of Christ compel you. I mean, it goes to see real exorcisms and real demonic possession. You really have to have the authority of Jesus Christ to do it, because He will say, you know, depart from me, I never knew you. It's, wait, didn't we cast out demons in your name? And because there is power in the name of Jesus, there really is. And wait, hold on. And I see a lot of people mixing like New Age beliefs with what some would, I'll loosely use the term Christianity, even though I think Christianity all has been pretty much tarred and marred nowadays with the prosperity and using God as a genie kind of thing. But either way, holy water, crosses, you have to be very careful not to worship the item, you know, and use it as, you know, I'm not saying that, you know, anybody, you know, I see people wear talismans, good luck charms, this, that, and the other. They're man-made. They are man-made. And I don't think a lot of people stop and really think about that. I'm going to put my faith in this. I had a buddy of mine, Kevin, spoke about him before. He'd say, I got to put my faith and charge these crystals or charge these seals in this pyramid I have. And he had a whole altar set up and this whole thing he did. And it's like, oh my gosh, what kind of hell are you bringing upon my house? Seriously. But, the stuff is real. Okay, it's real. I don't deny that, and I'm sure many of you here and listening also don't deny that. Okay, but what I'm saying is, don't fuck with it. Excuse me, don't play with it. I mean, I hear, people who are constantly sick or constantly, I don't feel good, or constantly feel drained, and a lot of them are in the paranormal. A lot of them, UFOs and this and that. It's like, do you know why you feel like this?
The object.
Well, no, they're energy.
Power only to the object itself. It's not the only thing that's going to save you. It's not like it's not the cure end all be all. It does create an energy if you put that energy into it, but it's not going to be the end all be all in a situation. A lot of it does have to do with how much you believe in it yourself with a lot of things. But I still think, like you said, putting too much amount of faith in an object is just going to lead to disappointments.
Can a rock save you? Can a tree save you?
They can make you feel better.
Depends on how I use it.
No, I'm talking about, can it save your spirit, your soul?
Ouch.
No.
If you're being chased by a bear, a tree can save you.
What about you, Robert?
And you know what I'm
saying.
I go away.
It saved David, right, from Goliath, that stone. Ding. Right. Gosh, think about that. Nephilim. I wish they would just come out with all these, giant fossilized bones that I've seen quips of reports on lately on the internet and stuff, and old magazines that I find reports. That is just fascinating to me because there's actual evidence for that stuff. I mean, I'm not going to argue about the origin, but let's look at the fact they existed. That's pretty big.
Well, yeah, and that could be like where giants came from, so on and so forth. But Robert, I wanted to get your take on holy water. Do you believe it works, or is it just water?
Well, with what I do with the shaping and cutting of the crystals and rocks, when I am working on them, I'm usually doing some sort of chant into them to try and put my intent into them to make them work for good, basically. And when cutting them, we're using water over the rocks, over the cutting discs. So that might be why they charge up a lot better than they would normally, because I'm always putting my intent into them while they're being covered by water. So I'm thinking that there could be a possibility for that, yes.
Nice. Well, the next question is, what are your views on shadow people and their relation to sleep paralysis? Mia?
So I've had sleep paralysis in multiple different ways. I mean, from a scientific perspective, sleep paralysis is basically you being partially asleep and part of your brain being part of asleep to the point where it paralyzes your bodies, and usually accompanied by hallucinations. On a different level, I think things can be seen two ways. I don't discount the scientific explanation, but I've had so many encounters with sleep paralysis, and it's insane, and they're different. They've been different each time. I've had encounters with extraterrestrials. I've had encounters with something that was physically on my chest that was connected to an object I took a picture of, as I told you about before. And multiple other. One was just too insane to even talk about because I can't even go there. But like shadow people in general, to me, is a very vague term because I've seen spirits and ghosts that have looked like shadows. And I don't know what shadow people are defined as. I've also seen, I've seen these figures that came across as shadows rather than beings of light, like you get a picture of an orb or a ghost. So I don't really have a clear definition of what a shadow person would be defined as. I think it's possible if you have a definition for what that is, but I don't know what that is. I think it could be a multitude of things. I'm not sure if there's any correct answer there.
Sleepy?
Well, in short, because I don't want to ramble, when I lived in Maryland, lived in the same house for a long time, and my ex's mother died in the house, suicide. I experienced sleep paralysis frequently, more than 3 times a week, and I think it was an entity of a sorts. I couldn't see it per se, but it was more like a mass that would cover me and hold my head down. Like I'd be laying in bed, and one night I remember waking up, and I was fully consciously awake. So when people say I'm half awake, I'm semi-awake, that is true. But I don't know if they were. I don't want to use the term allowed, but I was able to go from that half asleep, half awake, drowsy state to fully awake and conscious, but being unable to move at all, except for my eyes. And I couldn't scream. I tried screaming, my ex's name. That didn't work. And I looked at the clock. It was only like 11:30 at night, and I'm struggling to move. And I looking to the right with my eyes, and all I can see this black mass covering like the room, because we had the TV on. The TV is at the foot of our bed, so I should have seen the glare and the glow from the TV, but I didn't. So that's how I knew there's something physically floating above me, and then I just kept trying to jerk myself out of it, and finally it let go, and that was the end of that. But that kept happening until the day we actually physically separated, and that has never happened again, and it's been over 2 years. So I think that particular entity, I'm not saying that it was responsible for sleep paralysis, but it was doing what sleep paralysis does to a person, and from the reports that I've seen in the testimony of people and what you just said. So, but it stopped as soon as I separated from this person. So again, here we have an example, and I think proof of entities attached to people, poltergeist, ghosts, spirits, whatever it is, doing, as we hear, sleep paralysis right there. And as to what it is, we don't know exactly, but I can say in some sort of entity has to be.
Robert, what are your thoughts on shadow people and their relation to sleep paralysis?
Well, I've never had a sleep paralysis event myself, but the very first thing that I had paranormal happen to me was a group of what appeared to be shadow animals at the foot of my parents' bed when I was about 4 years old. And they were doing like a pantomime. They were Australian animals. They were kangaroo, emu, duck-billed platypus, and koala. And later on, I found out that the area had been an area where the Aboriginals had done tribal sort of stuff, and me and both my sisters had all seen an Aboriginal elder in our bathroom, which was upstairs. And the house was built for us, so there was no one that died in there beforehand. But I am thinking now that the Aboriginal elder had sent the shadow animals in to make me feel better because I was sick at the time. And they were actually other Aboriginal spirits that were pantomiming the animals like they do. So there was no sleep paralysis. It was just the animals, or the shadow animals.
That's pretty awesome. And I do believe that spirits can show themselves, drawing from different energies. Sometimes they appear dark, sometimes they appear lighter. I've had sleep paralysis twice. The first time, I didn't see any shadow people. Second time, right away, there was a shadow being next to me, and you could just see this figure until he smiled or laughed, and then you could see his teeth, and they were glowing white and sharp. And I couldn't move until he had leaned down and kissed me and sent a shock through my body, and then my feet were free. I could kick my feet. And that woke up my husband, and he saw it and reached over and grabbed me and pulled me towards him, and at that point, I was free from whatever was going on. But I've only experienced it twice, so I don't think it's like just something that happens to people and it's part of their genetics. I think it's actual happenings, like paranormal happenings.
I have seen some this is kind of going with that. I like, okay, for instance, when my father first passed away and I didn't know he was passed yet, he came to me and he almost looked like a zombie version of himself and almost like a shadow figure. I didn't find out later till that was him. He must have come to me directly when he died, like on that day. And I've seen a few apparitions like that where they look dark. And I feel like even in my mind's eye, when I've talked to people's loved ones before, sometimes they come across as like a shadow. And to me, that's usually like they're freshly passed and they're still almost connected to their bodies, like very freshly passed. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but I think that he's referring to shadow people as a different thing. But I've seen people that haven't crossed fully over yet, or even to be a ghost, that are still kind of connected to their bodies appear that way.
Very interesting. And it can be scary. Like, there's been a few times that I've seen these beings without having sleep paralysis. As a teenager, I'd go out running and stuff, and sometimes I'd be running home in the dark, and I'd hear somebody calling me forward, saying my name, and looking back behind me and seeing different shadow things darting in and out of the bush line or whatever I was running past. And sometimes just in the corner of your room, you see this dark, shadowy entity, or sometimes it just looks like a cloud of dark vapor. It's really interesting. But how do you call it just one thing? Is it a spirit trying to show itself, or is it an actual shadow person? It's hard to, I don't know.
I've seen residual energy of children, residual energy show up as like shadows that kind of just dart across. And like sometimes I'll hear footsteps, and I know it's not a spirit. I know it's just like a residual energy, right? And it's come across as a shadow. Maybe that's what some people are referring to as a shadow person, is like a residual imprint of the energy. Maybe they're just a little bit, maybe they're intuitive, maybe they're in tune to that, but they're just picking up on like somebody else's kind of like leftover residual energy.
Very interesting. So I know a lot of teams use psychics in their groups. Have you guys ever used a shaman? And what do you think they bring to an investigation? We'll start with Mia.
That's super fascinating. I've connected with a shaman on the other side once, years ago, but I've never actually, to my knowledge, met one in this life. So I'm really hoping that will happen. That would be amazing. So the answer is no, but I'd like to.
Sleepy?
No, I've never used a shaman. No, I went to a shaman woman back when it was a gal I was dating, and she's like, let's go see an Indian shaman out in Black Canyon City. I'm like, what? So she supposedly takes me to this Indian shaman woman out in the middle of the desert, right? It was the night of when Marshall Applewhite and company committed suicide in Hale-Bopp Comet, because we were all out there watching Hale-Bopp Comet with the binoculars and telescope. And she was telling us all about the Indian lore of the land and this, that, and the other thing. And then she's like, "Are you ready for your session?" And I look at the girl I'm dating, and I said, "What's she talking about, session?" She's like, "Oh, she's going to adjust us." I said, "Adjust us?" I'm like, "What do you mean, like crack her neck?" Like, so she's like, "No, just watch." So basically, she did what a chiropractor would do, crack this chick's neck. I'm like, "I'm not letting her do that to me. I'm like, I don't think so. No, you crack my neck like that." So unless shamanism or shamans practice what chiropractors do, I don't know what this lady claimed to be, and I don't think it's a very good example of the topic. So maybe you guys can tell me what the hell I witnessed. I don't know.
I think they do different things, so I guess that could have been a shaman. Like, they're healers and practice different healing and other magic, so perhaps she used not only her hands, but a magical ability to crack your neck. I don't know.
I don't know, but it was, wow. I'm like, all right. But, it was interesting. It was fun out there,
Robert, how about you?
Well, the closest I've ever had to having a shaman go with me anywhere was when I joined up with another psychic and did a ghost walk tour of the back streets of Rockhampton here. And she was able to pick up more than I was, because she'd been doing it a heck of a lot more than I had. It was a group of about 30-odd people with us, and she was picking up on areas where other ghosts were. Like, she'd been down there before and had made contact with the spirits prior, like months before. So she introduced us to where there was a little girl on the back step of a house. There was an evil sort of presence, she said, down a side alley to the alley that we were in. And at one point she sat down because she was feeling faint, and she was being touched by another spirit on the arm. But the one bit that got me was when she felt the spirit of a baby, and she helped pass that through. So I don't know if that is consistent with being a shaman or not, but she was helping a spirit pass through to the other side at that point in time. So not really sure if it's shamanistic, but it could have been.
The psychic we have on every month, Chris Garcia, talks about shamanism, generally not on the air, but having a history of it. And I know a guy out here who's a medicine man for the Ute tribe. He also deals drugs, which is interesting. I guess he considers those medicines too.
Would you like some mushrooms, some DMT?
Right. What do you need? What do you need? What can I give to you today?
Would you like some Folgers with your hallucinogenics today?
Right.
How enlightened do we want to be today?
Right.
How long can you burn, baby?
Please select level.
How lit can you get?
Overdrive. Maximum overdrive.
Otherwise, the only thing that comes to mind is when I was a kid, and I don't have recollection of this, but my dad said my mom took me to a seventh son of a seventh son. I had thrush really bad and antibiotics. Nothing was working. So she took me to him, and I guess he said some words and then disgustingly spit in my mouth. And then by the time we got back to the car, it was gone. So my dad said it did work, but it makes me wonder about the whole lore of the seventh son of a seventh son and how exactly all this stuff works. But it's pretty interesting.
Creepy. I don't know. That's some pretty bizarre stuff, man. Here I take my spit in my child's mouth. Ba-ding. I don't mean to make light. I don't mean to make light of it or anything, but that's just such an odd, well, hey, you got to be here again. You have to be careful because this stuff. I'm not denying it doesn't work. I'm just saying be careful what you're messing with, Kay.
Right, right.
That's all. You had no control over that, so you're not at fault. You're I don't know how old you were, but
unwilling participant.
Right.
And I have a phobia of spit. My brother spit in my mouth once, and I threw up. Like, that's just disgusting. Keep your stuff to yourself.
Yeah. That was probably after you were traumatized.
Yeah. Afterwards. Maybe that's where the whole I can't drink after people and everything comes from. It's disgusting. But on that note, go ahead.
And you never were sick, and you were never sick again because you never shared a glass.
No, here's a good example of how our mind is programmed in this. How events are programmed in our subconscious that we like or don't like. And I witnessed it with Madam President. When Madam President was old enough to sit up on her own without me and her mom having to worry about her falling over, we went to Atlantic City and we rented a room, and it had this huge shower. I mean, this shower was like from one end of the wall to the other. It had like 4 spigots, one on each end of the wall and then 2 coming out on the other wall. So she had a brilliant idea to put Melody down at one end, and while we take a shower and let Melody play and everything. And I said, you don't want to. I said, what are you doing? I said, the water's going in her eyes. She's not old enough to know to wipe the water from her eyes. She keeps blinking like crazy. I said, she's going to have a thing that she doesn't like water in the eyes. So it didn't last long, like maybe a couple of minutes at the most. So we get her out, dry her off and everything. And I'm like, okay. I said, we just pulled a new stupid parent move. We don't do that shit, right? So now to this day, at Melody, 8 years old, she has this phobia of washing her hair in the bath, and then she can't get water in her eyes. She's got to cover her eyes. It burns, it stings. It's just regular water now. Why? Right. All from one incident. That's how much it ingrained in her. So, and I told her about it. I said, I don't know why.
Not holy water.
Right, not holy water. No,
stop, Father, it bends.
But I tell her, I said, this is why you have issue with water in your eyes. And I tell her the story. I said, so you can overcome it. I said, water doesn't sting. I said, if it's mixed with soap, yes, it'll sting anybody's eye.
That's right. Well, on that note, we do have to go to our second musical break. Right now, we have I Want It All by Mystique. And we also have If I Slip and Power Play by Primal Instinct. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this musical break. Phenomenon.
Okay. I want it all. Even if you're stepping out of bounds, keep balling. I want it all. Diamonds and cars. Building big yachts, close up the stars. Buying the bars. Own it is ours. I want it all. Big or small. No more of a downfall. I want it all. I want it all. I want it all. I could sign your baseball. Money making it rain fall on a big mall. Owning the whole block. Driving to the mailbox. Cruising in my yacht, I gotta get up out this box. I want it all. I always knew that I would be rich, don't doubt for a minute. Speaking to existence, hoping and feeling to give away $1 million. Just be chilling in the tallest building. Say hello to the mission and vision with me. Hello. Watch cost about 150 Rolex diamond luxury city. Next to Movado, motto cocked before the arrival. Lamborghini with bass high, I could hear it all. Sit back, sun roof up, is the stars. High performance cars, super saloon, exclusive rims spinning hard. Always wanted to build a park, obstacles to enter. A lot more for the kids, recreation centers. I want it all. Red bricks, cream coated, painted marble fountain as I pass. Walking the stone path, heated pool, home theater for all of my family. Wanna do it for my city. Can't wait to see the chandeliers hanging from the ceiling. I want it all. Diamonds and cars, building big yachts, close up the stars. Buying the bars, own it is ours. I want it all. Big or small, no more of a downfall. I want it all. I want it all. I want it all. I could sign your baseball. Money making it rain fall on a big mall. Owning the whole block, driving to the mailbox. Cruising in my yacht, I gotta get up out this box. I want it all. I'm inside of a dungeon, life involves repercussions. Convinced that consequences leave me boxed up, feeling suction. How could this bad mistake have me thinking ways to escape? Catching the case, wanting it all has been replaced. Look at a cellmate face, I know they can't relate. Trust in the soul, heck no, it's to stay safe. Up in the place where my food is cold on my plate. It ain't no breaks, it's a time to concentrate. Watching my back, got stabbed by too many snakes. Who times dragged against the bars is a rude away. Mind race, body cold, hard to embrace. The situation made me think, why did I misbehave? And common sense of being solved in so many ways. During the problem thoughts, I forgot I want it all. Forgot I had a dream to rule it. Forgot to remember that all my fans had a thought that I can have it all. I want it all, staring at the walls, walking down the halls, wait for my collect call. Supposed to be at a concert hall. Instead, I want it all behind bars. Can't reach for a star. It's severe. I want it all. 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 Diamonds and cars, building big yards, close up the stars, buying the bars, on it is on, I want it all, big or small, no more of a downfall, I want it all, diamonds and cars, building big yards, close up the stars, buying the bars, on it is ours, I want it all, big or small, no more of a downfall, I want it all. I want it all, I want it all. I can sign your baseball. Money making it rain fall on a big mall. Owning the whole block, driving to the mailbox. Cruising in my yacht, I gotta get about this bodice. I want it all. Mystique, mystique, mystique. I got dreams and ambition, I'm ready and I'm willing, I'm meeting this competition. You don't wanna be my dinner. The whole shift changed when the music bang. Love the look on their face. I got dreams and ambition, I'm ready and willing, I'm meeting this competition. You don't wanna be my dinner. The whole shift changed when the music bang. I just love to see the look on their face, and if I slip, I'ma bounce right back, cause I was born for this. I got dreams and ambition, man. If I slip, I'ma bounce right back, cause I was born for this. I'm ready and willing, even if I slip, I'ma bounce right back, cause I was born for this. I'm meeting this competition. If I slip, I'ma bounce right back, cause I was born for this. You don't wanna be my dinner. I'm about to do this to death, cause I know they watching. Don't understand the talking, tell that dog to quit barking. I'm an entrepreneur, so correct when you talking. Bet I get it back and take a loss to be a boss. Coming fast and I'm switching lanes with it, crisscross. Never messing with you, rapping ratchets, what you really thought. And my jab steady dreaming, chasing missions for the fam. Understand I'm flowing lands from the Milwaukee brand. Thought you knew you can't wear my shoes, not do what I do. It's a mob, I don't pick and choose, just sticking to the rules. Keep my beats above and beneath. They know I'm beauty. What you need, I got what you need when it come to it. Who been grinding all winter so the summer extra lit? I've been in and out the booth trying to weigh up my greatness. It ain't no time to play with it, and if I slip, I'ma bounce right back, cause I was born for this. I got dreams and ambition, man. If I slip, I'ma bounce right back, cause I was born for this. I'm ready and willing, even if I slip, I'ma bounce right back, cause I was born for this. I'm meeting this competition. If I slip, I'ma bounce right back, cause I was born for this. You don't wanna be my dinner.
With great precision, I'm on a mission. Lots of ambition, my transition. The time was ticking, willing and wishing. Just listen, I punch harder than Sonny Liston. They fishing, looking for teeth. It look like Lipton. They tripping. I am the king, whose competition? Collisions. Conclusion is I'm in
upon a lifetime. Was a man in the hood, tricked, misguided, and misunderstood. Till one day he cried out, Lord, save me. Teach me the lessons of life, won't you raise me? Because I tried everything under my hat, and I found all my plans were tears in the right. I need a hero, a real life camaraderie, to step in to see me and deliver a power play. Something to raise my head from the dust is the must. I find someone in whom I can trust. I must grow in knowledge, live what I learn. I'm so glad to meet you, yo, my name is Vern. Lead me any way that you would and I'll share. I need your power play. Another one. It's so good to be clothed in your right mind. Dreams to the front and all past behind. Memories of things you did so absurd. Came to the curb, now heard was the word. Cause often we're low now, problems can grind us, but with power from God, yeah, we all stand victorious. Listen to the seed, the knowledge, and digest the real only cause a trooper like Jay keeps it righteous. And it's present from example of a vocalist, adjust your bubble. Leroy is like dangerous trouble. Trouble if you want it, peace if you with it. Never before known of a man who can stand it, but so irrelevant. So kick it in if you will, Lord. And I shield, I need your power play. Yeah, here comes another one. Power for living, power for expressing, power for the knowledge, and now you're not guessing. When power meets the darkness, the devil's got to go. Let's mock that weasel, and now he's going loco. If you got a problem, God can solve it. Power from the churro and you're in this outfit. Why must the fit stay dirty so filthy? Get off your rear and whitewash the pickings. Power for cleansing, power for sanitizing, power for us, power for the rising of the sun. Cause in your darkest hour you can look up and express to feel the power up. I need your power play.
Welcome back, and thank you so much for joining us on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. Tonight we're doing our Paradox Paranormal Forum, and tonight we are joined by Miss Mia Savage, Robert White from the UK, as well as SleepyDave Davenport, our weekday host. Welcome back, guys, and thanks so much for hanging out.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Oh, Australia. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, snap.
On behalf of all Australia and behalf of all America, we all thank you for joining us here.
Yeah, and Oscar Lindquist is requesting that Robert say small balls again. I don't know.
Small balls?
So we were talking about
Big balls.
Sealman, right? I've got the biggest balls of them all. But Sealman and Medicine Man, so on and so forth on the last section of the show. And we're kind of getting into that. And it's interesting how there's different names for different tribes or religions, so on and so forth.
Yes, and I'm just wondering because I've heard multiple definitions of a shaman. Some are like magic men, some are just like medicine men, and some are like kind of a mixture of both. And so I'm kind of wondering if there is like a set definition for it it's become very vague, the definition of a shaman, and what it is that they actually do. So I'm curious.
I wonder if there's any connection with that and skinwalkers, because I know skinwalking is practiced as a religion. Some people come into it by intentionally taking a life. Others do it unintentionally, as if, in birth and other situations. So it's interesting how you have the dark side and the light side of things, and how those things work. If you're doing wrong, of course, you're breaking the law. But if you're just practicing your religion by running in the skin of a wolf or whatever you may choose at that point, that's pretty intriguing.
If there's like a Dumbledore and a Voldemort of the shamans, that would be interesting. Like if one segment of a tribe or a group, and shamans can be all over the world, right? But if they can have one that's like, is it like a wizard? Where there's or are you a good witch or a bad witch? Like, could there be both though? That ones that use it for evil as well as good.
Right.
Well, the tales down this way of the Aboriginal elders, they could do the healing type of stuff, as well as being part of the dream time. The dream time is what they refer to as when the animals, like giant animals, would be shaping and forming the landscape and things like that. So I'm not too sure if that would be considered with the shamanism, but if they could shape themselves into those animals, which I believe some of them say that they used to, that might also be part of the skinwalking type of deal.
Yeah, it's super intense and mind-blowing. Like, I can't even wrap my mind around it or imagine, but I know it's possible.
Sorry, I lost you guys for a second there.
No worries.
Have we been found again?
So, Mia, you were talking about psychics and how some of them are just out there not representing and basically being false prophets, etc. What would you like to say about that?
Well, I dislike, I wouldn't go around, I don't like to masquerade and go and call myself a medium or a psychic. I have no doubt in my mind. I've had spirits come to me for years, to come to me, whether it's in dreams or something else, to pass along messages to others. But I have yet to see someone that can do that 24/7, if that makes sense. I think with anything with practice, you can do that. But I think a lot of times, especially for me, if I'm sitting in a room with 20 or 50 or 100 people, it would be very difficult for me to tune into just one message, one person. They do step forward. So I'm saying like those YouTube videos, they have psychics that are like psychic fails and all that stuff. Sometimes I take the psychic's side within the argument of them being inaccurate, and sometimes I take the people's side, that are getting the readings, because you can tell that this psychic person is taking advantage, whether or not that they have the ability to talk to them or not. They're just making up things as they go along, or using psychological tactics in order to manipulate people into thinking certain things. Like they do like cold readings and hot readings, or they switch things around. Like I said, like if somebody's like, I don't know, somebody here, something about the color red, somebody hates the color red. And then the guy's like, no, I love the color red. And he's like, yes, I heard that. That's what he said, and just turning it around and completely, going off kilter. I think it would be very difficult for me as a person, and from my experience, to sit in a room with like 50 different people and read for everyone there and get messages. I think also from the other side, they're busy. So if I am not speaking, it also must be difficult for the psychic, though, if no one's coming through. Maybe somebody's not coming through, especially if you're on a one-on-one, to tell the person that someone's not coming through. But I think it's better to tell them that than to tell them a blatant lie, which is clearly a lie and can clearly cause much more damage. I saw a comment on what, I don't know if it's Sylvia Brown or something. It was horrible. She had a young daughter that died. This person had got a reading with one of these psychics. I'm not sure who it was. I'm not saying it was Sylvia Brown, someone. And she wrote this review, and she went there out of desperation because it was her young daughter that had passed. And all that she came out with from these lies was even more loss of hope, right? This was her last hope. So the least she could have done is comfort her and be honest, or just say that, she's in heaven and her, she's watching over you, but don't go so far as to lie to them where it hurts people's feelings, or get an ego on yourself and lie. I just hate it when they become arrogant and egotistical and then they start talking down to people. I think that's the worst thing that you can do, and it just makes you look like an idiot. Anyway, I was just watching all those psychic fails, and and some people are really harsh too on some of the psychics as well. Like they'll get half from one. I don't know how you would get half a story from one, spirit, and then half a story from another one, and then you mix them together. I understand that happening because I've felt sometimes like there's a whole room of people around me sometimes. That's why I kind of quit doing like group YouTube channel readings for my tarot stuff, because it's confusing for someone. There's so many energies coming through, and I'm like, this is no way. There's just no way that all of this can be true that they're doing when they're doing those group things and doing it for high profit and TV shows.
Yeah, it's sad when people do that. As well, because, they're taking advantage of a person who's generally looking for help or contact with a person. They may not have had a good relationship before this person passed, whatever the story may be, and they're just looking for peace and help, and somebody's there taking advantage, or if they're not right, then they feel attacked, so like you said, they take it out on the person asking or whatnot. I think it takes more energy to be dishonest and be playing this game instead of truthfully saying what comes through and using your gifts as such, and not taking advantage of the person or the situation.
Exactly. I read this one critic this video I watched, and the critics were saying something about why the spirits wouldn't come through basically and confess all of the things that they did wrong, or about all of the negative things in life. And at that point, to the critics, I just say, I've never had a spirit come through of my own close family members or anyone else that's going to talk about the negative things that they've done in their life, unless it's just them not being there. I've never had someone say, oh, okay, I killed a guy in Mexico once. They don't come through and say that stuff. That just doesn't happen. So the critics are saying, well, why wouldn't they do that? They have a free pass to confess everything they've done in their life, but they're not doing it. Because they don't do that. Because, once we pass, our job is to deal with stuff on the other side and disconnect from our body. We can still watch over our loved ones, but our job is not to focus on our previous lives, on our previous life, I should say. It's a double-edged sword either way.
Right.
Yeah.
Robert, did you have any thoughts on that?
Well, while you were talking about the lady getting the reading, about the daughter, I don't know why, but I had an image pop in my head of the person doing the reading getting a message saying, you have reached ghost number 34117. We are not available at this time. Can you leave a message, please? Beep.
I think with that many people, that's what would happen. You know?
Yeah, you'd have to have that, wouldn't you?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, it's. I think it's very difficult to. I do think that people are mediums, and I do think everyone is able. I don't think it's a special thing. I think it's just like anything else. You practice with it, and you work with it. I do think things in life can open you up further. You know, and we're all at different stages in our lives, and you know, near-death experiences, whatever, can open our abilities up further. But like you said, that is so hilarious. That's exactly how I view it, as when they're standing in front of a crowd. It's like a line, and who knows what's going to come through, and who knows if anyone's going to come through. Like if you're doing a private reading, also I don't think there's any sense of time on the other side as well. A lot of times when things come through, I'm not even around, you know, the person that they're coming through for. That happened more often when I was first like figuring things out. Like they would come through at a separate time, and then I'd have to figure out who to send this message to and if they were able to handle it. Another one is like my friend, she lost her sister, and I went on the astral looking for her sister, and I don't know where she was. There's even some of my family members to this day that I can't talk to because they're busy. They're dealing with karma and evolution and whatever's on the other side. Some of them may have even reincarnated, if you believe in that. I do believe that as well. If they have no karma left here on earth, especially if they died of natural causes, like my grandma, you know, I rarely do I ever even see her, and I haven't in a while. You know, if you've lived a long life and you've fulfilled everything and you don't feel still tied to anything or anyone, why wouldn't you move on, whether it's in this dimension or a next dimension? Anyway.
Yeah, I can fully agree with that.
Well, it's interesting, too. And like you're saying, time is different on the other side than it is here. Like with my mom, she came to me once when I was 5, almost 6. And then I didn't get to see her again, even though I thought of her every day and every night. And most of the day, period. You know, I got in trouble in school for daydreaming, so on and so forth. And I didn't see her again until I believe I was almost 18, and it was actually Mother's Day. She appeared in my dream, and I woke up crying, and then I realized it was Mother's Day, so I went and saw her that day. I would have totally spaced it had it not been, but it's interesting how they show up occasionally. I do think there's stuff to do on the other side, and like you said, different people reincarnate. There's a different path for everyone. She was tragically taken in a car accident, so perhaps, you know, she's got some leeway here and there. You can't really say what's going on the other side because we're not there yet. But I found it interesting one time, Bill Hauser was using his ghost boxes, and I heard specifically a woman saying, "All right, everyone, quit crowding, get in line, wait your turn." So that was cool. Like somebody was trying to have some order instead of everybody just kind of bum rushing the ghost box or the medium or the psychic or whoever's trying to do readings at the point.
That was a smart person. Hopefully I'm like that on the other side.
I know. I was like, did you hear that? And other people heard it too. I was like, that was awesome. Somebody's actually trying to take control over there.
I think also, and this is strange, but I think this is something that's going to be more and more prevalent, and something one of the psychics said that made me believe that this particular psychic was not lying, is that there's a lot of symbolism on the other side. And if there's someone that you love in your life, whether they're close to the end or not close to the end, I feel like you should always kind of get to know what their kind of symbols are, you know, whether it's their favorite animal, their favorite color, sometimes even what they do for a living can bring them through, you know, to you personally, to connect to your loved ones. things that they did, like I have my grandfather who comes through is touching, like grazing my left hand. You have these weird little symbols that you can kind of communicate to your loved ones. So in case the horrible event happens that they do cross over, that they're there. That's the other problem, is there is communication issues. They could be there, but you're not looking for any of these, symbols because, maybe you are like an atheist and also a non-believer in anything paranormal, and you think maybe when you die, you die. And if you think that way, it's going to be really hard to communicate with somebody on the other side. Even if someone does it for you, it's still difficult.
Well, I think different things happen to us in the spirit world due to our beliefs. Like Kate Johnson, she was stuck in purgatory on a train car in the Durango and Silverton narrow gauge museum because she believed in purgatory. Although she was raised Catholic and turned into a working girl, she still had her beliefs. And so that's where she was stuck until she was released. But then having free will, she came back and took care of Emmy, who's the little girl ghost there. So it's pretty interesting. I think spirits can kind of do what they see fit or what's needed, and you're not just kind of held down to something. You have that gift of free will and free agency, and that's not only in this life, but on the other side as well.
Agreed. My father, he was like me, very, very open, had a lot of spiritual, I hate using the word abilities, but just he was very, very connected, to the spiritual realm. So even though we weren't like connected in this world, he's the one that has always come in through so strong, and the one that helped me open me up because of all of his beliefs. Like it was the strangest thing, right? Like he was a sign painter for a long time. So literally I would see like signs that would be painted that would, and there are some people that will diagnose that as a psychological problem, but it wasn't, because it was him. And I would also feel like a warmth on my lower back for some reason. Still haven't figured out what that was. I don't know if that's a chakra thing. He rubbed my lower back when I was a baby. I don't remember. But something like that. But as with my grandma, she was a Catholic for so many years. So I haven't encountered her very much. So I really, she does come down. I don't think she's in a bad place, but she's not as easily as accessible as some of my other guides and family members.
What about you, Robert? What do you think about the other side and being able to express your free will, or what exactly is going on over there? Have you had any family members that passed appear to you in a dream or in person?
Yeah, my father did a couple of times when we were up far north, and I wasn't exactly asleep. I literally closed my eyes and saw an image of him. I didn't hear him speaking anything, but I saw him in the normal everyday outfit he was in, like the blue work shirt, the jeans he wore, and the hat he wore. And the sister, who was over on the other side of Australia, she also saw him. She was driving a ute, a utility vehicle, and she had somebody else in the ute with her, and they both saw him materialize. And the friend that was with my sister said, "Did you see that?" And my sister said, "Yeah, I saw that. That was just Dad." And yes, that was a gecko.
That's funny.
So,
well, it's interesting that you mentioned the. Go ahead, Robert.
I think that they do have their abilities to show up when they need to give you a guiding hand or to show you what you're meant to be doing, etc. One of my friends that had died when I was 9 years old, I I believe he came through in the form of a song that I was listening to. I had a tape deck and headphones on one night, and I was just saying in my mind, "Oh, wish I could hear from Adrian again." And then, as I was falling asleep, I could have sworn that the lyrics to the songs changed to say that I'm here, I can hear you, and I'm okay.
That's super cool, because I have told people quite often, like, say it in your head, say it out loud. Either way, they can hear you.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yes, music is a good connector as well. I've had a lot.
You've had experiences with that as well? With, like, music and, basically ghost boxes are off of radio sweeping, and you hear a voice over several different sweeps, same voice, stating a sentence, like.
Yes, like, well, when my father passed, the Guns N' Roses song, Sweet Child of Mine, I'm sure I've already told people this before, but one of the first things that started happening is that song would come on over and over and over wherever I went, to the point where my friends around me and people around me were like, this is getting really weird and strange. And so, of course, I actually got it tattooed on me, the name of the song in memory of him. But there were other songs, too, that were totally his songs. And even to this day, every once in a while, he'll appear. But he's a musician and I'm a musician. So that's another way that he loves to come through, especially if I'm in a bad mood. He puts on a random song that I know it's him, no matter what platform or when it is. I know when it's him. There was a Scorpion song that literally one day I could see him laughing because the lyrics had changed. And to this day, I still hear like the lyrics changed in that particular song, right? It's very interesting. Like they changed to my name, saying my name in there. And I'm like, that's very, very weird, But I can actually, sometimes he'll put things on and I can see him laughing too. Like it's pretty funny. A lot of times he's a total joker. Like that's his favorite thing to do.
Laughter is the best medicine, and I do think that music is basically a universal language, and so many things can be wrought from it, but it's interesting when the other side does come through that, or white noise, or different other things like that, just using different energies and genres of different ways to communicate. But I think the dream realm is a lot easier than trying to physically appear as well as trying to speak. A lot of times you get EVPs that are in a whisper. The person could be yelling at you, but it comes through as a whisper. It's so weird. Makes you think.
Yes. Yeah. And then sometimes they come through as a yell, especially if they're angry. Like that one guy when we went to do that investigation. Remember that we did that investigation near the lake in I know what it's called, but I can't
Lake
pronounce
Durango?
it. Yeah. No, Vicita.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Vicita. We went into the bar, and this angry guy, I literally felt him, and I was about to sit in this chair, and I felt him already. And he was the angry drunk guy, and the EMF reader said like don't sit there or don't sit in my chair or something funny like that. I think he was like, it was just interesting. Like it really did pick him up for a while, and he was kind of a jerk. I do remember that. I remember just like feeling him and kind of like seeing him, and then we had a little spat over the little not the EMF but the radio. It was interesting.
Wow. Did you see him? Like, I want to ask if he was like short, kind of stocky with white hair and like an angry look on his face, like very serious.
I'm trying to remember. I don't see them. I'm not visual. It's cognate.
And he's got like a Indiana Jones hat on.
He did have a hat on. I remember that. My memory is horrible when it comes to this. This is just in general, my memory is awful.
Because when you described him, My husband's band used to play there back when it was, I can't even remember what it was called. Now it's called the Lake House, and I think it's changed names a couple more times. But yeah, there was a guy that used to own it. He had like dinosaur poop and all kinds of other things in the showroom in the front, and kept the rest of the space for like the restaurant and a little small space for the band and dance area. But he was just very serious and angry all the time, and you couldn't tell,
this guy was kind of a drunk. Was he kind of a drunk?
I think he was in his earlier years, but as he got older, he wasn't. But, once one, always one in a certain sense, as far as like, if you're a tweaker, you have tweaker things going on afterwards, like tics and little things that you do where someone thinks you're on drugs, but you're really not. You kind of still have that underlying thing going on from your element.
Yeah. This particular gentleman, I can't remember what he looked like. I do remember he was a drinker. It would make sense that he would have been a previous owner because he was talking about this chair that was his property, but it wasn't necessarily the chair. Remember the TV kept going off? Do you remember that?
I didn't get to go on this one.
Oh, you weren't there? Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, the TV kept flickering on and off and like going into like static mode right when he was getting agitated. Mm-hmm. And that was really, really interesting. I truthfully, I just remember seeing him, like the way I saw it was he was if I recall, he wasn't that stocky, but I that was so long ago. I don't want to mess it up. I'm horrible with just my memory is awful in general.
Hugely stocky, but like he had broad shoulders, but he wasn't overweight. Okay. But yeah, he was a smaller guy. You could tell like he was perhaps military in the past. But the lake house is so weird. Like, I know you guys were saying upstairs there was just like this packed room of spirits. And my brother Bear, right before he died, he was living upstairs on the outside of that place in the apartment right above the entryway. And he was actually walking down the stairs one day, and all of a sudden his ankle broke and he fell and he was in the hospital. He had sleep apnea, so on and so forth. They didn't put him on like a heart monitor for some reason, and they didn't find him until he was blue. And that was on early morning of Halloween. But I mean, that place just has always had, to me, it seems like a string of bad luck or bad energy going on. I'm not sure what's going on with that, but it's also in a lot of different places there at Vallecito Lake. Used to be Ute land. A lot of people that have been there have suffered all kinds of hardships, so on and so forth. And just recently, a few years back, they built a park and they had the Ute tribe come back and bless the park. Not any other areas, but the certain park they built. So that's interesting to me as well. It makes me wonder if there's some sort of curse on that land because they were driven out of there, and then the white man came and populated it, and then the government came in with the lake and kind of ruined it for a few people.
Yeah, that would make sense. I felt like it was this particular, when I sat down, I actually physically like felt him, and I forget, I think it like felt like my skin got hot everywhere. Mm-hmm. When I sat down, like I was literally in his energy field, or vice versa. So that was very interesting.
So did you move or did you stay there? Like, what happened?
Oh, we spoke with him for a little bit. And that's when the TVs started flickering, and not just flickering, like it would go off and like go staticky and then come back on, or black. I forget, staticky or black. It was just like the whole screen would turn off and go back on. And then it was like I was sitting in his spot, and then I asked about the chairs. I thought it might be connected to the chairs itself, but I think he was connected to the place itself, because it was just in that spot. But he got angry and he started like cussing at me and everything. Like, it was weird. Like, he literally, they caught it on the voice box. It wasn't the voice box, but I think it was somebody's app. And it was just strange. He was angry. I haven't dealt with a lot of angry ones before, So that was kind of new for me. I mean, actually, I have, but less angry ones than like sad ones.
Yeah. It's weird what'll keep you hanging out in a place, and it's just different, like different stories, different mysteries to figure out with different spirits when you are investigating. One thing that I was thinking of is salt. So a lot of times during cleansings or trying to protect, so on and so forth, we use salt. Have you ever heard of using salt against aliens, aka Allens and their damn UFOs? Mia?
I mean, I'm sure it's crossed my mind at some point, but I've never actually tried it before. I do take a lot of salt baths. I don't, it could attract them or it could repel them. I'm not sure. I think, all minerals in general, carry an energy form to them. And it's possible that for some species, maybe it attracts them, and for some it repels them, and for some they just don't care.
Robert?
Well, with that idea, I'd be more willing to have a flask or a jar, like the salt shaker type things that you can crunch up, filled with Himalayan rock salt, because that's the larger granules.
Right.
Just have one of them ready for them, and if they do show up, just peg it at them.
Yeah, it's funny. I was watching a video where this guy back in, I believe it was the 50s or 60s, said that the Allens showed up on his property and they sat there and they shared cakes. And when he's talking about cakes, he actually showed this little cracker-looking thing, which basically looked like a burn-up pancake. But they tested it, and they said nowhere in this little cake that they use for their sustenance, there was no salt whatsoever found in it, which we find salt in basically everything we use. So they're thinking that salt is poisonous to aliens, and perhaps we could use it to protect ourselves from them, just as we do from dark entities. Which maybe they're the same thing.
Either that or they don't have taste buds.
They can't handle the salt.
Yeah, you can't handle the salt.
Poor fellows. I feel really bad for them. What a bland diet.
Indeed. No wonder they take the cattle. They want their free macas.
Not just the cattle. Have you heard recently the cattle mutilations have started again? Just recently I read articles here in Colorado where ranchers are finding portions of their cattle dead with their lips and other parts of them missing. Why do you want a cow's lips? Like, what are you using? And I've heard different accounts of people saying, they see this like reddish type, substance with different parts floating around in that. And that's what they use as sustenance to get them through space or time travel. But I mean, wouldn't you use all the cow and its different parts as opposed to just its lips and vagina?
Well, the hooves are what they make bubblegum out of, so you'd think that they'd go for something like that could sustain them.
Right. It makes more sense.
No idea why they go for the lips.
Mia,
no
what
idea.
Are your thoughts? It's so freaking weird.
I didn't know that. I'm trying here, but I honestly, I think there's more than one. I think personally that there are different species here all the time that are in a dimension that we can't necessarily see. I don't mean just on Earth, but just even surrounding Earth. And I think a lot of these like cattle things they can be like of two species that I've read and encountered myself. The ones that I have encountered myself that were like the small grays, they were like kind of like into science and stuff. So maybe there's a component just in those parts of the body, or like some sort of just something there that is only in that part of the body for them that they want to maybe test for something. Maybe they're trying to make sure that, maybe it has something to do with what we're feeding them or something like that, or even just like the weed repellent where they want to test, like cows, they'll eat with their mouths, right? And then they have babies. So maybe they're making sure that whatever is, in the feed is not being passed on to the offspring. I'm not sure. Could be a science thing behind that though, rather than something for them to feed upon.
Right.
Monsanto, maybe?
Right. Could be that. And it's weird that they would take the lips because a lot of cows take some time on a salt lick. So there's got to be salt in those lips. So if it is poisonous, like they have to be using it for something other than food. Like you were saying, some sort of testing or, man, I don't know. I don't get it.
I don't think all, species are out to get us. It could be because I think if something happens to Earth, it's a domino effect, right? I think we're being monitored almost on a universal scale, making sure that we don't do anything stupid like nuclear bombs and stuff. And so I feel like as we're being watched, maybe they're just monitoring us in different ways, testing maybe our water or our food sources, our weapons, and just trying to make sure that we don't blow up. Because if we do, what if we send off like a whole ripple effect to not only our galaxy, but, the other galaxies around us? But if they could be from the future, knowing that, trying to prevent these things from happening, not necessarily trying to be malevolent by doing these things.
Right. It's hard to say what they're thinking or doing because we're not in their heads. What are your guys'...
If I want to be in their heads, I wouldn't understand the language.
Right? I try to stay far away from that. Yeah, it's interesting. And, it's gone back since the dawn of time that we know of, people talking about and depicting aliens in their different scripts or paintings or writings, or even on rocks, the Native Americans have shown aliens in there. They depict what they see. They depict the antelope and the deer and so on and so forth. And then you see these different entities here in the Four Corners. They make little cocopellis, and you basically see these different aliens standing around, and people buy these and decorate their houses with them, not even knowing what they are. One, they're Kachina dolls. The cocopelli is actually the god of fertilization, or the alien spirit or whatnot of fertilization. It's pretty weird.
So, in other words, they're the alien probing sigil.
Right? He's got a lot of little danglies off his head, so...
It's their ancestors, the gods that came down from the sky and bred with the humans in order to create,
Very strange indeed. And a lot of people think that we came from aliens and that we were started here in little petri dishes and we're just here for their fun and amusement, and different alien races are fighting over us, some for the good of us, some for the bad. Some want us to use all of our powers and be godlike, and others want to keep us, downtrodden and, working for the almighty dollar, so on and so forth, which kind of makes sense on what we're going through right now and the different depravities we have going on, even though we're pretty advanced for our civilization.
We're all just a Sims game for them.
That is pretty funny to think of.
Deep thoughts.
Deep Thoughts by Mia Savage.
And then I
gotta pull myself back sometimes. Like, too deep? Sorry. It's too deep for me. I'm like, whoa. Where'd that come from?
And they throw in things like Bigfoot and aliens, and the aliens are there, obviously. But then things like the Fae, fairies, dragons, all those sort of things. They'll throw them in and really spook the population.
Yeah, it's funny. Mr. Nice Guy over on Periscope was saying, I think we think more highly of ourselves than is deserved. And it's funny, we've become consumers and we're just consuming our earth and every resource that is put out there in front of us. And it's kind of scary.
That's kind of a humbling comment. I like that. You can take that in two ways. You can take that in a very pessimistic way, or you can take that in, because we really, okay, so aside from all the destruction that we've done, we're the only species on this planet, in this plane, that has, evolved to the level that we're at, regardless of the destruction that we're doing. But he's right. Like, what if we're really like the dumbest animals? What if all the other animals are laughing at us right now because they're like, these guys are crazy, materialistic, and ruled by ego, right? They don't know how to work together as a team. They don't know how to go with the natural cycles of life. They're pushing against the tide in the natural order of things. I think my dog thinks that sometimes when she looks at me. She's like, you crazy human. One day you'll learn.
Right?
Well, I'm very much in favour of what was said by Mr. Smith in The Matrix, that humans are a virus and we're the only ones that spread and decimate the area that would be used for living. I know that's not the quote, but that's pretty much what it was, that we'll take over an area, decimate it, and we don't do anything to try and clean up what we've done.
Yeah, it's really sad.
Yeah, let's just go take someone else's land and destroy that.
Right. And how do you stand apart from that? Like, I'm not one of them.
Easy. Just talk to the aliens and be like, hey, you guys, okay, like, whatever these people are doing, I don't know them. I'm cool. I'll go back with you.
I'll partake. I'll take a probing. Don't leave me behind.
Don't leave my behind.
Don't leave my behind.
Sorry.
No worries. But I do think they're out there, and I think disclosure should happen. And I know they're worried about everybody running around like chickens with their heads cut off, but I don't know. I think the History Channel and other people have been kind of patting our minds and getting us prepared for certain thought processes and acceptances, so on and so forth. I just wish they'd let it rip, but for some reason they're not, and it takes me back to Jimmy Carter when they finally took him in and let him know what was going on. And then one of his Secret Service agents said he saw him sitting at the desk with his head in his palms and he was sobbing. And that had gone on for a while. And it makes you wonder, well, is there really a good reason, like our parents keep things from us, why our government is? But then you think again, government, I don't trust them as far as I can throw them. So it's hard to decipher between the two.
It's such a tough call. It's such a tough call because, like, when you tell a group of people something, especially a large group, it's mass hysteria, and you don't want to do that. If you pulled almost any one of those people individually into a room and told them and explained them what's going on, they could handle it, whether it's over some amount of time. It's weird how that works, how we get, most animals, they become more intelligent in groups, like wolves hunting in packs. They have a really, set out, and they're a really standard and complex way of hunting and moving and seasons and all that stuff, But when we get a whole group of people together, it's so much different. Like, you can take the worst kid in the class and tutor him after class, and he'll be well behaved, after a couple of times. But if you talk into the whole class, they just get all wild. And dramatic is the word.
Andromeda. That's where that name comes from.
Andromeda.
Well, we are at the end of our time, you guys. So, Mia, where can our listeners find you, communicate with you, ask you questions?
You can find me on Facebook or SoundCloud at Antidote for Savages. And that's about it right now.
Awesome. And how about you, Robert?
Facebook. I have an account on LinkedIn. I'm just not sure how to get onto it. Just look for either battleliner at gmail.com or on borg202 at hotmail.com.
Borg,
Borg, yeah. B-O-R-G.
Borg.
That was one I made years and years and years ago.
Was that your name? Because I was going to say that sounds like that should be your name. Did you say that should be your name, Borg? I like that.
I think I made that back in 1998.
Resistance is futile.
Oh, it's so
That's
cool.
right,
Okay.
Sleepy. Well, thank you, SleepyDave and Robert and Mia, for hanging out with us tonight on Late Night in the Rockies. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you again. Always a pleasure.
And thank you to all of our friends on We Are Paradox Media's Facebook, Spreaker, Twitter, Periscope, iHeartRadio, and wherever else you're listening beyond the Omniverse tonight. I had a wonderful time this evening, and I can't wait to do it again tomorrow night when we are joined by Jay and Maria Yates, who have been on every single paranormal show you can see in the history of mankind. Don't forget, we are all in this together. Together we can make the world a little better, and together, my friends, we are Paradox Media, because without you, there is no us. And if you'd like to join us on the Skype after party, look me up and send me a contact request at live Tessa.N.Thomas30 or give us a jingle at 1-970-335-9596. Until next time, nighty night, love and light. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and I will see you back here, same time, same place.